When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth?
He made the earth and the universe. He made the sun shining brightly. He made the animals in harmony. He made you and me, and we'll sing. Who sits on the throne? You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is the If he made everything, why not praise him for that? He is very merciful. His own son died for us and sing. Who sits on the throne? You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is the King. Oh He is who he is. He is the bread of life. He made everything, everything. And now I'll sing a new song, a new song. Who sits on the throne? You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is the who sits on the throne. You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is Yahweh, sits on the throne. Yahweh is the King. He is the All these voices in my head, I didn't know what they said. Now I don't Feels like a day comes by when trials hit hard, and the world tries to push you this way and that way. I wish it would all just go quiet so you can show me the right way. I'm just trying to walk this walk, but I'm at the edge of my rope, and all these people trying to talk their talk. I don't know what they're saying. I just look up at the heavens and call your name, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. I'm just trying to walk this walk, Yahweh, Yahweh. And all these people trying to talk their talk. I'm just trying to walk this walk, but I'm at the edge of my rope, and all these people trying to talk their talk. I don't know what they're saying. I just look up at the heavens and call your name, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh.
In our lives there are cracks in the path, and hard times come around, but you gotta keep going in the right way. Don't turn around, journey on.
Nobody says it's easy to be his servant. It's not hard to turn away, but keep going in this faith. Journey on, journey on.
right, you said we're on live, right? We're good? Robert, we got the stream going? Okay, good. All right, and here's Stephen. That's good. Chag Sameach! Chag Sameach! Amen. We're going to have to work on some of yours, that chus sound, so we don't sound like we're talking about a pig. Chag Sameach. That kind of sounds... Joyful Chag. That doesn't sound right at all. Of course, after talking for nonstop for 9 days, I don't want to do that too hard, you know. Chag Sameach. Awesome job. Shh. All right, we need to get settled in. We're going to get started here on our final service of Sukkot and Shemini Atzeret. This is Shemini Atzeret. And we've had an awesome 9 days here, and it's been just fabulous. Awesome. All right, so we're going to begin by sounding the shofar, if you'll all rise. Amen, amen. All right. Let's go ahead and sing praises to our King.
Behold, Yahweh is my salvation. I will trust and will not be afraid. For the mighty one is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. For the mighty one is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. La 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 Behold, Yahweh is my salvation. I will trust and will not be afraid. For the mighty one is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. For the mighty one is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. La 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 Hallelujah, Yahweh, Mogoyin Shabuko Haruim, Kikabar Hallelujah, Mastole Amet Yahweh Olam. Praise Yahweh, all ye nations, praise Him, all ye people. Everlasting is His truth and His kindness is great. In the secret of his dwelling place,
Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Eretz Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order, sing and dance unto the Lord. Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Eretz Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order, sing and dance unto the Lord. praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord.
Arise and shine. Arise and shine. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. And the nations shall come unto thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about and see, they gather themselves all together. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. And the sons of those who afflicted thee, and all who have despised you will bow down. Then they shall call you the city of the Lord, Zion of the Holy One of Israel. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. Oh, arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee.
I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim the tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Messiah of Israel is he, restorer of our nation, the hope of David now. How I praise you, Lord, you're the rock of my salvation. You I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let let my voice proclaim tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Yeshua is his name.
are the Lion of Judah, the Lamb who was slain. You ascended to heaven and evermore will reign. At the end of the age, when the earth you reclaim, you will gather the nations before you, and the eyes of all men will be fixed on the Lamb who was crucified. With wisdom and mercy and justice you'll reign at your Father's side, and the angels will cry, Hail the Lamb, who was slain for the world, ruled in power, and the earth will reply, You shall reign as the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. There's a shield in our hands and a sword at our side. There's a fire in our spirits that cannot be denied. 'Cause the Father has told us, for these you have died, for the nations that gather before you. And the eyes of all men will be fixed on the Lamb who was crucified. With wisdom and mercy and justice you'll reign at your Father's side, and the angels will cry, Hail the Lamb, who was slain for the world, ruled in power, and the earth will reply, You shall reign as the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. As the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, eternity's holy King. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, whose words bring on the evening. Baruch hu et Yahweh HaMevorach Le'olam vayed. Baruch hu et Yahweh HaMevorach Le'olam vayed. Thy wisdom, O Yah, heaven's gates open up. With understanding you order the seasons, creating day and night, turning darkness into light, arranging the stars to your pleasing. Baruch hu et Yahweh HaMevorach To the Holy One we sing, Yahweh is your name. To the self-existent One, rule over us, now and forever the same. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMevorach Le'olam Vayeh. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMevorach Le'olam Vayeh. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, eternity's holy King. Blessed are you, O Yahweh, whose word brings on the evening. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMevorach Le'olam Vayeh. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMevorach Le'olam Vayeh. Le'olam Vayeh. Le'olam Vayeh. Rejoice, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. For behold, your King is coming to you. He is humble and bearing salvation. Rejoice, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter Our King is coming to you. He is humble and bearing salvation, salvation, salvation.
Amen. Amen. Oh, Father, we come before you. We're just so thankful and just rejoicing before you and excited about your feasts and these times that we get to spend together. And so, Father, we come before you now singing and dancing and making a joyful noise, appreciating the holy days that you give us, the times of refreshing, the times of celebration, and the times to rehearse being a living community, practicing what we'll be doing forever. So, Father, we want to ask that you would guide and lead all things, that all things would be to your glory and honor as we come before you today. In the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen. Amen. Stephen, can you just grab a paper? Craig, can you give him that paper on the chair? Oh, Stephen's right here. Just give it to Stephen. All right. Okay. Shh. All right, so this is the time in our tradition here with M2I, Beth Shalom, etc., that we take up the prayer needs within the body. Now, of course, we've done that several times this week because we've had 2 holy days and a Sabbath in between there, and the Sabbath was only 2 days ago. But we do have some things we need to deal with today that are fairly urgent, and so we're going to ask that if you do have a prayer, we'll skip the praises for right now, but as far as a prayer, if there's anything super urgent, you can raise your hand. We're talking about, like, seriously, we need the extra time. Okay, we're going to need the extra time to deal with something very urgent. And so if you have something urgent, please raise your hand. If you're online, the same thing. If there's 1 or 2 things that might be urgent, we certainly don't want to skip those. And so, Kurt, you want to go ahead and start us off? HH2 is off.
We on now? All right. Yeah, I just found out last night one of my sisters called and told me that my youngest sister has a mass on her ovaries, and she's going in for a checkup for that. She had cancer a few years ago, and it's come back. So I called my younger sister to find out, why didn't you tell me? And she says, well, she didn't want to worry me yet, but then she tells me, did you know my twin sister has a mass on her brain? So both of them are going through cancer issues right now, so please hold them up in prayer.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll certainly hold you up in prayer and the rest of your family as well. Is there anybody else? Okay, good. It's good to know we don't have too many urgent things going on. Is there anything else on live stream, Robert? Unspoken, okay. All right, so I'd like the leadership and those that know who you are want to come up and just come up here for this. Okay, and Kurt, you would come, and Stephanie, and any of the rest of you that want to come up here. You know what we're doing and dealing with right now, so come on up. Robert, you want to grab Hayes on your way out up here? He's right outside the door. And here comes Rabbi Tom. You can even just go right in front of us, and that'll be fine. You can just pull up a little bit into the staircase here. That'll be just fine. Perfect. There you go. All right, so I don't have anything written out specifically for this, but these are things that we're going to talk about that should not be totally surprising. The ministry is being attacked. okay? I mean, in a vicious way. And me specifically, but not just me, actually most of the people on the stage with me are being attacked, which means that you're being attacked in some degree or some way. And so I just think that it was time that we need to shine light on it, because the person who's doing the attacking is doing it somewhat individual to individual, and actually was planning to blow this up today, to try to do something to wreck MTOI on Shemoneh Atzeret, on a holy day. And so I just wanted to be the one to share with you so you know what's going on, so you hear it from me, because that's, I think, the right way to do it. Now, the person that we're talking about is a lady named Bobby Geraldine Henderson. And a lot of ladies will know her from the Ladies Marco Polo. I do not know why she's doing what she's doing. She's not the only one involved, there's others. But she is sort of the spearhead, the primary person. And for what I'm sharing with you, we have documentation, written, video, so it's not speculation, okay? Now, some of you are going to wonder, well, did we do the biblical thing? Did we go to our sister or brother? Well, first of all, she never came to us, although she is telling people she has, but I can promise you, from Robert and myself, she has not come to us about any of this stuff. And others who know about what she's trying to do have not come to us either. And that's interesting that it just so happened that the Lashon Hara thing was dealt with to such a high degree this week, because we're dealing with it actually in reality. And we did not plan to do this in reaction to what's going on. It just happened to be those verses are the ones that came up. And so what we're dealing with here is, again, I said, I don't know why she's doing this, but as far as biblical precedent, it says, if your brother sins against you, this is not a brother in the camp situation. We are under attack by someone who in their correspondence admits that they've been planning this for over a year, and admits that they were doing everything that you saw that was nice as a lie, as infiltration. I mean, it admits it right there in the correspondence. So I don't know that we would say that biblical precedence here is to have to go to your brother and then bring witnesses and all that. There are plenty of witnesses already have been contacted. Some of you may have been contacted and don't know what she was going to share with you, but she's told you she has things to share with you. So I'm going to share with you. And unfortunately, as a group grows bigger and we get more public, no surprise we're under attack. Can we agree? Okay. So here's what's going on. We came to find out that for whatever reason, she has done background checks on not only everybody standing almost on this stage, but as well as all of our family members, and shared that information with lots of people. We're talking about brothers, sisters, nephews, nieces, not just the people standing on this stage, looking for anything to try to blow up the ministry, and is telling people and hinting at very strongly that we have criminals running the organization. We're being attacked on two fronts: accusations of finance. Now, all of the leadership knows, the people on this stage and those that are not here in this room, knows that we have meetings every month in which we fully disclose all financial records and what's going on. They disclose what's going on in their congregations. We disclose the overall ministry. Full accountability. There is a board, by the way, for MTOI, and there's also the Leadership Council. But we're being accused of not having any of those things. We're being accused of having over $4.7 million coming in a year. If that were true, we'd have bought that camp a long time ago. And having over 46 employees. Well, pretty much everybody employed by us is on the stage, and not everybody on the stage is employed by us, okay? And so, just so you understand some of the nature of this. But the one that's much more, getting people's attention is that in 2006, when I was a massage therapist, I was falsely accused of inappropriate contact. And I was arrested, of course, because that's what they do when they accuse you of anything. And then I was brought in for court, and I was found innocent of the charges. Of course, this doesn't matter to her and the people that are listening to her. But this is what she's spreading. And others who are with her are also even harassing my wife by, on the first holy day, sending her private messages in Facebook Messenger as if she wouldn't have known what happened, 12 years ago. And so the good news of all of this is that this is out and now can't ever be used ever as a leverage to try to hurt the ministry. But this isn't like some ministries where they say, I'm here to confess something. I'm not confessing anything. I was falsely accused. I went through my day in court, and I was found to be not guilty. And that was the way it went through. And some of you will hear that there were two charges. Let me explain that confusion. It took 4 years for me to fight the civil attack on my license. And so that was 4 years later, so now she claims there were 2 incidents. No, it took 4 years for me to settle out the license attack, in which I had no choice because we ran out of money. Actually, we borrowed the money, but we had to just fight it in the first place. And so by 2010, I ran out of money, and just all I did was voluntarily relinquish the license and agree never to apply for one, which, believe me, you could never pay me enough to get in a room again after what happened. And you can understand that, okay? And you have to understand that this is very traumatic also because we have a lot of women in this room and elsewhere that I have worked with so hard to restore their faith in male leadership. Women that have been destroyed to a certain degree and are just starting to find life back because of fathers and brothers and other leadership that have done inappropriate things. And each one of them, I feel so blessed to know when I shared this with them, because I wanted them to hear from me personally, told me, Rabbi, if there was any possibility, I'd have known it the minute I met you. Some of you ladies know what I'm talking about. And said, I never felt any of that, and I'd be willing to stand up here and tell everybody. So this isn't one of those, there's no legal recourse again. I mean, everything is fine from that point of view. We went through that nightmare. It bankrupted us. It forced us to live in my parents' house in a little bedroom until we could get back. I'm still paying my father back. But part of the allegations is that my father, my brothers, and I have, some big real estate scam going on, and we're millionaires, and it's just crazy stuff. That, as far as to me, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't know where it's all coming from. But you just need to know, and this is the most important piece of this, that we are already seeking what legal recourses we have. And anybody that is involved, you will have an opportunity to consider whether you want to be addressed that way or not. And so back to the Lashon Hara. That should be enough, actually, Lashon Hara, because then you're facing his judgment. But also understand we live in a country where there are laws against slander, libel. We have both of those in this case, written and verbal, defamation of character, harassment, could even include cyberbullying and even hate crimes. It's a ministry after all. It could be federal because there are people involved across the states. It could be international. There's people here from every country. And we're not looking to do anything to this person, particularly except please stop this craziness, this foolishness. Why would you attack us? At least tell us what's going on. We have no idea what's behind it because we were not contacted. But it was very important to us that you see the leadership here together. Everyone here has not only been aware of it, we've all seen the materials. So everybody here has not just been told by me what's going on. We've all been involved with looking at, watching video, reading emails, reading all that. We have seen the material. And so I just wanted to make sure that we share this with all of you because it should not be a surprise as we grow that we're going to be attacked. Of course, we couldn't see this happening particularly. But Abba does talk about pruning. And you got to decide now if you're being pruned or if we're going to be stronger in the tree trunk and move forward as this thing grows. So I just wanted to share that with you from me. If you have any comments or questions, please contact us privately. Obviously not today on a holy day. But we just wanted to make sure to get that information out to you because the only way to deal with stuff being done in the dark is to shine light on it. Amen? Amen. Okay. Okay, leaders, you want to come on back. Rabbi Tom would like to anoint Julie and myself up here in the front. He just said that that's something he'd like to do, and we can bring a chair up here or two. Okay, so. I got it right here. No, go ahead, bring one. You got one. You want this?
Before we begin, I'd just like to say something. this is the case, and this is going on in our political scene today, where some people understand that you don't have to prove anything. All you have to do is make the accusation and automatic guilt. Now, the thing that I wanted to say, the rabbi mentioned Lashon Hara. There's also something called Ozeh Hara, that means the evil ear. So if you stand there and listen to these people, you're just as guilty. And by the same token, if you hear this, if you hear these things being spoken, no matter what it is, you hear evil being spoken, and you don't report it to leadership, you keep silent, you're just as guilty again. Now, almost every year we anoint Rabbi and Rebbitzin, and I don't want anybody to think it's just a formality or an empty ritual or anything. It's a necessity, because these two folks have to have their batteries recharged. They need our support. And most of all, they need Yahweh's support. And so that's why we're going to anoint them. And Rabbi has anointed probably everyone here at least once, maybe some 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Okay? But he very rarely gets anointed, and Rebbitzin Julie very rarely gets anointed. So we're going to do that today, and we hope you all join in prayer. I'll pass the bottle around. It's not that kind of a bottle.
You want to do this one?
Yeah, whatever.
You want the roll-on?
The what?
The roll-on? Would make it easier?
Yeah, it might. Well, here, I got it. Just pass it around. Bob got one, too. I also wanted Marty and David Hayes down here, because they're not leaders, but yeah. Oh, you're there. Hello. Okay. They play key positions. Manny, yes, and Manny makes these. So everybody who by the way, all these guys were under attack too. Where's my oil?
It's coming back around.
Okay.
He's got it. Bob's got it.
Almighty and eternal Father, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father and our King. Father, we come before you this afternoon's hour, placing our hands that are anointed with oil, asking you to bless and strengthen and encourage Rabbi and Rebbitzin, that they may continue, that they may not get discouraged. We ask you, Father, to strengthen them. They are strong people, but Father, things like this are very difficult. And Father, we also want to encourage them to rejoice in trials. That's what the scripture says. We're to rejoice. So maybe, Father, we could think of this, that we owe these dissemblers, these evil, vile speakers, thanks. We owe them thanks for giving us a chance to prove our faith by rejoicing before you in the midst of adversity, in the midst of hatred, in the midst of reviling. So, Father, we know that you will answer our prayers. We know that you hear our prayers, because we ask them sincerely in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah and Redeemer. Hallelujah. Amen.
You know, I'm a little choked up at this point. This is a really hard job. It's just hard on everybody involved, not just me, the other leaders that are involved. And of course, this was all of us being attacked, not just me. Most of the men on that stage had their names on the list and were being also investigated and attacked. And in some very weird way, it was almost worth it to feel that love. To know that we're that well supported, and it was so encouraging, and it's just moving, and appreciate that. Appreciate it. Amen. Some of you are used to seeing me at Sukkot, and I'm running around like a chicken without a head, and I'm doing all these things, but I know a lot of you have noticed that you've never seen me look this tired. Well, that's because we've been dealing with this since Yom Kippur. I didn't find out about this till midnight, right after we got back from breaking the fast. And when I found out about it, I stayed at that person's house getting the information till 6 o'clock in the morning. And then immediately 3 hours later, got on the truck and got all the things going on to come here. And that's been that since. And so this has been the most relentless, exhausting Sukkot. But I have to say, it still, in some incredible way, has been the best one ever. Amen. You've heard me say this before. We're going to war. Well, actually, we're already in one. And I'm not just talking about this particular incident. We're in a war. The world is not for what we're doing, and we're trying to do something in the face of the trend we're going upstream against a torrent. And so we're definitely going to be attacked. A lot of you get attacked on a regular enough basis by friends and family members for various different things. So really no surprise there. But you know what I feel? I feel relief that this can never come up again. It's been addressed. It was always there, not that it needed to. It was something that happened, it was dealt with, etc., and we dealt with all that. But we always knew that there could be a time when somebody would try to use it against. And now it's over. Amen. And I just looked over at my wife, and she's like, literally, that's what she did. That's the burden and the stress, especially on her, to know what she already went through this once. And to go through it again, you never know how people are going to, we have, Bob and Robin, my best friend, Uncle Bob, they were with us through this. Okay, you could talk to them. They went through this with us back then. And they're still here. And Robin's one of those people that said, I would have known. Okay? And so it just makes us feel very encouraged to see the response. So just thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay. But let me be clear on something. It's not over. Don't think very quickly that people out there are going to just stop because of what happened today. There are still people we've interacted with that we've heard, still going on and on, but what if this is true and what if that? There are people that want to believe. They want to believe that there's bad thing here and bad thing there and everything else like that. They're hoping and looking for that because somebody had their stuff not in their feelings bag where it belonged. No, I'm just being serious. And this won't be the last time something comes up, because if Abba uses this in any more powerful way, and the same thing with other ministries like what Curtis is doing and others that are out there, they're going to be attacked on some level about something. And so we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared. Because if we can get through this, we could all be Josephs. Amen? And I'm talking about all of you individually because you're going through your own attacks. Family, friends, co-workers, you're under attack. So it doesn't matter that you're so you're an individual and we're a big ministry. It's the same thing. Everybody who's under attack feels the same way. And we need to cling together for this stuff. I mean, we need to find out first what's really going on, because what if there's really something? Okay, great. Well, you know what? All of the stuff is already adjudicated, on record, done. As far as the financial stuff, that's already on record, easily accessible, done. We don't share that all with everybody all the time, because quite frankly, that opens up more problems than it helps. But we actually have filings that we do to keep our status correctly, and things that we keep records of for our status correctly. And we do have accountability. And we have a leadership group that meets, and we'll be meeting again actually 2 weeks from yesterday, on Sunday. And guess what we do in those meetings? We let everybody know where we are financially. We talk about a lot of other things as well. And so we're kind of an open book that way, because countered all of this, those of you that know me know that I am obsessively paranoid of maintaining integrity. My wife will tell you that I like to go above and beyond to make sure we don't look like a cult, that we don't even have a hint of anything that looks like that we're not doing anything wrong with the money, that we're not, I am over and above almost paranoid about it. I want to make sure we are not displeasing to him and not embarrassing him. Amen? Amen. All right. See, I needed that too, to have a deep breath. Okay, so at this point we're going to start with we're going to go into the liturgy. If you'll all rise, we'll just get back to normal. Let's get back to where we need to be and enjoy Shemini Atzeret. Amen. That's right. Chag Sameach. All right, Dawid, if you'll come up, you'll lead us in the liturgy. Dawid's feeling better. Let's. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it to you in a minute. Also, because I was just thinking about the fact that he'd been under weather, I want to really applaud some of the members of the praise team, because Shira, she was struggling. Brianna, they were struggling. Their voices are going. It's been a long week. We've had a lot of people on it. So, they were up there like troopers. Michelle stepped up, and we got to hear her a little bit more. And so we just really appreciate that very much. Okay? Because the show must go on, but it's not a show. It's praise. Amen. We're trying to help lift you up, and you're lifting up him. And all we're doing is trying to provide you a little bit of a vehicle to do that. So excellent job for those of you, especially who are struggling. Robert's been really struggling. He's here. He even went into the ER the other night. I mean, he's really struggling. We have a lot of people under the weather, but they're here and they're doing what they can because there's a job to be done. And that job is serving the body. And we all have a job to do as being a light to the world. And so we got to do that, no matter what's going on. Amen? Amen. Dawid.
Okay. I just wanted to make one thing clear. I may not have been one of the people up here with Rabbi during that speech, but I wanted to make one thing clear. That man is my papa. He's more than my rabbi. He's my papa. And he's been there for my sister and myself when, in many different ways, too many ways to count. And I know he's a papa to many people out here, maybe not all of you, but some of you. You know who you're talking about. You know who I'm talking about. You know who you are. He is our papa. And anybody who comes against him is coming against us. I ain't going to ask you to raise your hands because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But you know who you are. And to anyone out there that's attacking this man, you're coming against more than one man. You're coming against more than the people that you've decided to investigate independently. Sloppily, I might add. You need to beware because you're coming against, in my opinion, an anointed one. And you need to ask yourself what you're doing. Because you're risking not only judgment from the courts of this world, you're risking judgment from the heavenly court. And I'm done. And like Rabbi said, let's get back to normal. All right. Rabbi, Obviously, no Vishamru. Okay, cool. Just had to, sorry, stage whisper. Okay. Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMevorach. Baruch Yahweh HaMevorach leolam vaed. Bless Yahweh, who is blessed. Blessed be Yahweh, who is blessed forever and ever. Amen. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. How good thee are thy tents, O Jacob, thy tabernacles, Yisrael. V'ani berov chazdecha avo v'techa eshtachave el hechal kodshecha be'yiratecha. And in thy great compassion I will come into your house. There I will bow, there I will fear thy holiness, O Yah, O Yah. Shema. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh is one. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. Amen. Ve'ahavta. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Amen. Mi chamocha belim Yahweh, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot ose fele, ose fele. Who is like you, Yahweh, among the gods? Who is like you, mighty in holiness? You are awesome in praise, doing wonders, Yahweh, doing wonders, Yahweh. We said that there was going to be no Vishamru. Praying for the children under the chuppah, I'm assuming.
There we go. All right, children, we're going to get the chuppah step up. I love that the children, automatically were going right into Vishamru. They know how it goes. I mean, Mi Chamocha ends right away. Vishamru. Good job. All right, so as soon as they get that chuppah set up, we'll get the children in. Okay, let me... It's like an endless stream of children.
You should reference Matthew 5:10.
There's a little bit more room over here if you want to maybe go in that way. Okay, we can just find a way to squeeze everybody in. I think to the left, if you go that way, there might be more room over here. Right inside. Shh. Got a couple of more coming. We definitely need a bigger chuppah. Okay, Diane, did you hear that? We need a bigger chuppah. All right, do we have everyone? All right. It will extend your hearts and hands towards the children. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, King Father, we separate out these children and we, the best we can, fit them under this chuppah. But the chuppah is a symbol. We know it's a symbol of you as a covering. And Father, it's our greatest desire that these children would be covered by you every day and every minute of their life. And that they would appreciate that covering, they would embrace it, they would seek it. And that, Father, they would know that they know that they know you. That, Father, you would help us that are raising them to raise them in the truth, to raise them in your ways, to raise them to be strong men and women of Yisrael as they grow. That they too can be a light to the world and be representing you in a way that brings you glory and honor and not shame. So, Father, as we come before you now and separate these children, we ask a blessing upon them, abundant blessing of your love, compassion, and mercy as you guide them into your kingdom. Father, we thank you and we praise you. In the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen. 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 Okay, Katan, Aleph, and Bet, you'll meet in the back. You're going to be taking over to Eureka. Gadol, you're staying here. Okay, the rest of you may be seated. Okay. That's a lot of children. That is a lot of praise. Yeah, that's a lot of children. I thought I brought my water bottle up here. Oh, there it is. All right. Ha'ma'aseh v'hatrumah, the tithes and the offerings, and this being a holy day, we're not to come to holy days empty-handed, but especially the three Chagim, or the Shalosh Regalim, the feast we just completed was the third one, and also a reminder that with this being Shemini Atzeret, excess second tithe would be put then in the box, and you would start again tomorrow, getting ready for Pesach. Now, with all the relentless things going on, and it wasn't all issues like what we were just talking about earlier. I mean, we had a lot of really great counseling sessions, and we had classes and teachings. And I got to tell you, I never did schedule counseling sessions like we did this feast, and I know we needed to, and I'm glad we did. But they would start even at like right after supper at 7 o'clock, 7:30, and go all the way to almost 2 in the morning. And that's 30 minutes apiece. So I don't think one went for 5 hours. I mean, think about how many that is. When you think about it, that's just great that and by the way, it's not because everybody has so many issues. They wanted to get to know me. They wanted to ask questions. They just wanted to build relationships, and it was really great that we were able to do that. And that's now why I'm appreciating that my body clock is good to go till 3 in the morning. The getting up for breakfast thing was a little tough, though. I'm looking forward to getting home so I can wake up at the crack of noon, like a normal person should. Okay? All right. Now, let's see where we're at on the announcements. We're talking about the Ha'ma'aseh v'hatrumah. So just again, just a reminder that your tithing year also starts, so if you're counting years, as you go into the third tithe, your new year starts counting the feast season after today. So you'll be going into a tithe year number, whatever you're up to. Okay? All right. The purpose of tithing, as we understand it, is to teach us always to put Yahweh first in our lives. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who commanded and made promises to us concerning the tithe and the offering. May you open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that cannot be contained as we walk in these mitzvot, these commandments. Amen. Amen. Awesome. Okay, some announcements. And this is going to be a little bit more like our normal announcements because we're going to be going back, hopefully, to our normal routine as we get home. And I will also cover some things that have to still do with finishing up here at the property. So we'll kind of get those things worked out. So first and foremost, just a reminder that for those of you that are interested in, helping to I forget the word, support, that's the word I was blanking on, support the body in a way that doesn't cost you any extra money, but you do the normal shopping you do. You could always use our Amazon affiliate link on our website or go through smile.amazon.com if you are an Amazon shopper. If you're not, then don't. Please don't do it today, okay, because it is a holy day, okay? And those are two ways that you can do that. If you're online, we do have donation buttons everywhere, so on our website, on the YouTube video, etc., if you're so moved to do so. Okay, now, so calendar stuff, all right? So again, reminder that we do not have a Torah study tomorrow night. But wasn't it great to have one yesterday? And a really good job by Mr. David Bobwick-Reese. Thank you, David. I only met him basically a year ago. And he has just flourished in terms of being available and growing into a place of being able to serve the body and be useful to the ministry and helping to meet the needs. And his wife Samia as well with doing all of the administrative stuff that we've done. And they are likely to be the people you talk to when you register for Pesach. Which I believe will be right here. Okay, so it'll be right in the same place. I believe I've already worked that out. I don't know where we're going to be for Sukkot because I don't think they have the availability. So we're going to start looking for that immediately as soon as we get home. So it's not that we don't love it so much, but I'm a little getting tired of the location issues we have. It seems like, wait a minute, we're Israel. He moved them 30-something. He moved them a lot. So I guess that's what our job is, to move a little bit. So we're hoping that that will all work out. So, all right, so the next Torah study will be on Tuesday, October 9th, and we will be actually on schedule with Noach. And so that'll be exciting, continuing chapter 6 of Genesis. The Sabbath services, Shabbat services this week, we're hoping will be at the new property. Now, we did get word that the closing will not be able to be moved up till tomorrow. We were hoping it would, although they are willing to be cooperative to maybe give us some space in the building to unload the truck into. Someplace they can lock up, and so that might be very nice. That could work out. And so we're hoping that that will work out. So of course these things are always hard to do when you're making arrangements and you say, okay, but I have to now wait until it is tomorrow because the holy day you can't make the arrangements. So we're hoping we can make these arrangements as we're actually preparing. And of course we do have a 4-hour drive, so we figure we could possibly get it done tomorrow during that time frame. And so please keep that in prayer as we are still hoping to close on or before Friday. I mean, the contract was for Friday. I mean, we were hoping to move it up to Tuesday, so we're still hoping. The only thing holding it up, in case you're wondering what's going on, is that the property had it's one of those ones that there was an issue because the government expanded the road in front of it, and so then it needed a new survey done to put the new property lines on there, and somehow that didn't get done, and so we're waiting for that so that we can actually have the title company tell us we can close. I mean, that does happen. And actually, if you live in our area, you see that happening like everywhere. We're in a very growing area. In Cleveland and Chattanooga, they're taking a lot of the smaller roads and they're widening them because they're getting much busier and they're adding more businesses and housing on those streets, new developments, new apartments, and all that kind of stuff. But of course, when you do that, what are you doing? You're taking away some property from the people who live on those streets. And so there was the need for a survey. So that's really the only thing holding this up. Everything else is in place and ready to go. We're going to spend some of that $4.7 million and buy this property. Right after I buy my second airplane. Okay. So we're hoping that everything will be worked out. I mean, it'd be nice if we can close before Friday so we can have time to really get the place set, at least so we could use it on Shabbat without us just walking in and trying to set it up and use it the first time we really have ever been in the building. So that would be really nice. So that's what we're hoping to do. Okay, so please keep that in prayer. Okay, and then of course, October 14th, that's on the Sunday. That's when we do all our meetings. The South Africans will be meeting with us at 10 o'clock a.m., then at noon, the full leadership, and a general session at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So these are all Eastern times, so we'll be doing that on Sunday. Okay, for those of you at the general session, the topic will likely be feedback and experiences from Sukkot. Not everybody was here, but certainly getting some feedback about this. But, I know a lot of us want to talk about our experience, and so that'll be an opportunity to hear about some of the things people did in other countries and other places. And so that is likely going to be the topic of discussion, is to give everybody an opportunity to share, some of their insights and experiences from Sukkot. Okay, now of course they may change to whatever Yahweh does in the next 2 weeks. It may be something else we talk about, but that's usually what we do after a feast. We have an opportunity to really have a big group discussion about how awesome He is and how blessed we are that He gave us feasts. Amen. Okay, so on the schedule tonight after supper, we're doing Millennium and Kingdom Part 4. You guys are like, you keep joking about it, Rabbi. We expect it one of these times. Okay, so remember that after sundown, the staff in general is going to get into full get ready to leave mode. We've got a lot of stuff to pack up. If you want to help, make sure you ask somebody who's in charge of an area how you can help. Please don't just jump in and do anything or that you see needing to be done, because it may or may not actually be helpful. Because it may be that something belongs in a place. We often have that happen, then when we go next feast, we don't know how to find something because it was put somewhere it wasn't normally put. And so then we're looking all over the place and it's in the wrong box. So we appreciate the enthusiasm that some of you have to help. Please ask somebody in charge of an area before you do, okay? And we're especially going to need help with the truck. So we need people to be here in the morning. Robert, what time does the truck get here? Okay, so we're going to need people ready to load by about 9:30 or 10? 9:15. Okay, it's not that far away? Okay, so we should have it here by 9:15, 9:30, and everything should be packed, ready, staged in like Eureka and here, ready to go into the truck. So if you could be ready and available to pick things up and put it in the truck, that would be awesome. And that would be just make it so much faster and easier. We appreciate that. Okay, as far as your individual needs to pack, we need to have everybody out of here hopefully by no later than, they'd like us out of here by 10 or 12. So 10 would be great, 12 would be okay. They don't probably have a whole lot of people showing up on a Tuesday, but that gives them time to get the place ready for any groups that might be coming in. This is a very busy time of year as the leaves start to get closer to changing. People love to do little retreats and programs on this property. As you can know, it's beautiful here. It's just a beautiful property, okay? Okay, so what we need to cover with all of that is A, let's make sure we do our job to make sure the rooms are reasonably clean. They have staff that will take care of the normal stuff, but if you've made a mess, please don't leave it that way. We have heard a lot when we've been to places trying to negotiate that groups have come in the past, especially quote-unquote religious groups, and they end up being worse than other groups. We talked to some hotels, especially up in the Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, that area, that won't take a religious group, especially a Christian group for whatever reason, because they just don't treat the property right. We need to be the ones that they go, this group behaves the best, takes care of things the best, and basically that is what they're telling us right now, that this group gives them the least amount of issues. So think of that as you're cleaning out your room and that you leave it in a way that leaves that impression. Now, there were some things that didn't go perfect this week, and guess what? The staff will be having an after-event meeting, and when we get together, we will note those things. So if there's anything that you noticed that you'd like us to know, you're more than welcome to email admin@mtoi.org. Let Robert know. Be polite and nice and say, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. No, just say, look, these are some of the things I saw that you might want to be aware of so that maybe we can do something to make it work better next time. Probably we're already aware of it because we've been hearing feedback all along and we've been paying attention. We're watching what's happening, so we know what's happening. And so we do always have a meeting after we go to events like this, and then we get our notes together to say, well, what went well, what didn't? Like we'll know that we need a bigger chuppah. Okay? Let me write that now. Bigger. This is my pad that I'll have at the meeting. Okay, so we need to get a bigger chuppah and other things that we'll need to note. And so let's just be aware that your team here is every time hoping to make it that much better. And the property also feels that way. We have a very good relationship now after only 2 events with the people here. And they do want us to be coming back if they can have us here. And so then the other issue would be room keys. Okay, room keys. Okay, please, number 1, don't take them home. That happens almost every feast. Somebody forgets it in their pocket or somehow it ends up in their luggage and they end up having to mail it back. Please, let's not take any keys home. Okay, if you can return them tonight, that would be great. There will be people in here packing down everything and putting everything away. We do have a way to take your keys, mark you off, and put it in the drawer so we know we have it. You don't need your key for tomorrow. Nobody's going to steal anything out of your room tonight, especially if you're going to drop off your key, go back to your room, and do whatever you're going to do. Because some of you, if you're leaving early in the morning, there won't be anybody awake to have you, to help you. Because some of you are going to leave 5, 6, 7 in the morning because you have to go pretty far and you want to get there. And I get that. And so if you are here in the morning, all of us will probably be going to breakfast and still be here as we pack everything up as we try to leave here somewhere between 10 and 12. So the earlier the better, the sooner the better. Make sure you find myself or one of the staff. You know who they are. They're the same people you've been asking, when you needed help all week long. And be able to get us your key so that we can go ahead and check that off and make sure we get everything back to the property. We do have 2 lost and founds. And unfortunately, it's funny how every year people just don't seem to really care about the stuff they leave. And so we do have some out here on the table as well as stuff over in Eureka. Okay, I don't know where it is. Where is it in Eureka? Okay, it's on a table by the door as you go into Eureka Hall. And it's also right out on the table here by my desk by the offering box. There's lost and found. Okay, because it's by the offering box, it doesn't mean you have to pay to get them back. You are free and actually encouraged to please take your stuff. Okay? And so we do have that going on. Let me just see what else I have on here. Room keys, where to put them, okay, packing, loading truck. Okay, we covered everything on that for exit issues. So we hope and pray that you had a fabulous feast. Because supper is in 2 hours and I still have something to share with you, I want to just say something really quickly, is that without naming everybody, I do want to and all of you should also applaud for this especially, I mean the staff, and by staff I don't mean just the people that are getting a paycheck from MTOI, I mean all of the people that volunteered to drive carts, help with different things, help with classes, teach, whatever they were doing. Play music, work with the equipment, work the cameras, anything that was done to serve. I want to let you know how much my wife and I appreciate so much all that you did. You made this a fabulous feast. And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, in case some of them words of affirmation or physical touch are their thing, to go thank them and give them a hug when you see them. And tell them how much you appreciate all their work. Because there are people that have been tirelessly behind a camera or working different equipment or doing whatever they've been doing to serve, driving those carts. A lot of those guys were late to meals and barely had time to get anything done, but they drove you guys up and down that hill, running the carts and everything. I mean, there was a lot of serving going on, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. It was also a beautiful thing to experience for me, because it meant that I had almost like zero issues actually be brought to my attention. Everything was being handled on the other levels. And so it set me free to spend hours counseling and doing the things that really I would be more effective doing. So it's been a great, great job. A great, great job. I am going to name one person. I couldn't do this without, someone said Marty. Okay, Marty, Bob said that. You can thank him over there. Okay. I am going to thank one person, because none of this really is possible without my support. And not only like as a normal what you expect a wife to do, but to be able to run the entire children's program, design it, develop it, create it, oversee it. It's actually doubling our effectiveness. It really does. And so I want to just absolutely thank my beautiful wife, Julie. Because we have one ministry that's really two. Because really a lot of places, just maybe they'll do something to keep your kids entertained while you come into the study. But we actually give them just as much as we give you, if not more. And that's great. And she's been doing that. There he goes. And she's been doing that even before we had children. She was actually developing the children's program even back when we first started and we didn't have any children. And so just really, really, with all the hardness and difficulties and everything else of just doing this normal day-to-day stuff, I could not do it without her. So I love you, darling. Okay. I'll take another 20 years. I'll renew that contract. Well, you know what? I'll take as many as I can get. How's that? A happy anniversary. Thank you. All right. Okay, so I think that covers all that. So I got a couple of more things just to mention real quickly, because things have come up that need to be addressed that I know are exciting or confusing. First of all, I want to really appreciate that Mr. Curtis Reed has been able to be here this week. And we have had a fun time, and we always do. And if you're ever around us, you will be entertained. Just not because we're entertaining you, just watching us go at each other and have fun. So I just want to say that because of the things that he's brought to bear, some confusion and things are going on. It's not his fault. It's just that people are jumping to conclusions about things. I want to share the Donkey Stable program. Okay, first of all, is in beta test right now. It hasn't officially launched necessarily, but it is starting to get launched out there. You, as an MTOI group, will have an opportunity, if you're interested, to go in and get involved in an MTOI version of that, which Curtis will be helping to set up and design and work with and develop for us. So please, two things. One is, if you don't understand this whole donkey stable thing, we will explain it to you when we launch. We'll make it absolutely clear, and then you can decide if you want to participate in it from the point of view that you feel it may be something useful for you. It's going to be simply, obviously, volunteer. The second piece of this is we would want to encourage you to understand that you're not to go into any other stables until we have ours. Okay? He didn't put that out there to get you excited to come over to him and say, I need to get in one now. Be patient. Okay? So, because those two things started going around the camp. Some people weren't excited, wanted to get in one right now. Well, we don't have one available yet. And some of the ones, and whatever is available, mostly are full, because he hasn't really fully launched this thing yet. And the second part of it is some people are asking a lot of questions about, well, how would this work and how would that work? We promise we'll explain it all at the time we launch. Is that fair? Okay. Because I think it has a lot of potential to be a very useful tool in the mix. Okay? Now, some of you might say, well, I'm not so sure about that, but that's partially because you didn't understand it, because he didn't step up here for the 2 classes he did to share that. It was a part of his teaching about authority and the crisis we have with authority and the whole idea of usurping. And involved in that is his belief and understanding and confidence that the stables helps fix that problem. It's a tool in the fixing of that problem. So he didn't really have an opportunity here to explain it in its full detail. I can tell you that I understand it because we've talked about it now for about 5 years, okay? As he was developing it, and even before I even knew what it was going to look like when he did it, he was just doing it individually with a group of people down in New Zealand. And so I just want to make sure that that's clear for you. Please curb the enthusiasm, stay enthusiastic, but have it under control. We will be doing something very soon, and we'll be launching it for an MTOI for the group as a whole. Okay, excited about that? Okay. All right? Okay, I think that does cover it for my announcements, so I guess what's next is, I don't know, what do we do after announcements? I teach. Okay, there we go. I'll do that. I'm only doing it because Stephanie said that's what I do, so. You haven't heard? Stephanie's like, well, I haven't heard one yet. I've been with the children. It's about time I can hear one. So this one's just for Stephanie. The rest of you can also listen it if you want. Okay, the rest of you are welcome to listen. If you have a phone, you may want to go ahead and turn that to silent or off. And praise Yah that my throat actually made it all the way through. In the beginning, it looked like it was going to not make it, and actually, it got to a place and then stayed there the whole rest of the week. So where it is now is the way it's been for most of the week, and it's certainly workable. It's not ideal, but it's certainly workable. What's the screen going? Okay, I heard that noise. I said, what is that? All right, so, of course, Curtis isn't used to my style, so he asked me about an hour before we came in here. He said, so Shemini Atzeret, what kind of teaching you got going? I said, part 8. He goes, oh, okay. I've never been a big fan on some levels of the traditional every year same message because it's that season. Okay? Now, I'm not against doing seasonal messages to have us be prepared for that season, but I'd like it to be something fresh and different if the other stuff is already on record. Because all of you have heard, back in the church days, the Christmas message, the Easter message, you know what I'm saying? And you get the same thing every year. I don't want to do that. Look, even when we redo a teaching, like Are You Saved or Fear of Yahweh, it went from like 2 parts to 18 or whatever, It's not the same teaching. But I'm not a big fan of just doing the traditional seasonal message. But see, this is a season with Shemini Atzeret following Sukkot where I don't think there's a better thing to be making sure you understand than covenant. So even though we had already started it right before we got here, and we've journeyed through it a little bit since we've been here, I think covenant is absolutely appropriate and important to be a part of what we're doing here. Okay, and that wasn't even part of the stuff, so we didn't actually, I don't know if we recorded that or not. Marty might sneak that in there, so. Let me go ahead and make sure my timer is going correctly here. Okay. All right, so today we're in part 8, Are You Covenanted? And we're going to pick up where we left off. Wow, that was a long time ago. What was it, 2 days ago? We're going to pick up where we left off in Deuteronomy chapter 4. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 4. And we're going to pick up where we left off in verse 9. I'm going to do a little verse 9 reset here, just real quickly. So in Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 9, it says, only guard yourself. This is after he already talked about, and what nation is there that has such great laws? And what nation is there that heard directly from Elohim? And what nation is there? So he's saying, look, we are unique. No, there's no other nation that's had this experience. He says, but don't get all full of yourself and excited about it and think that's good enough just there. He says, you have to guard yourself and guard your life diligently, lest you forget the words your eyes have seen, unless they turn aside from your heart all the days of your life. Now, first of all, he says we got to be careful. It's not just remembering the signs and the wonders and knowing Yahweh is close to you, but you now need to guard after. The whole point of him being close to you was to share the words so that you can start to do the words and that you can start to become blessed, safe, and changed. And that's really the key. But I think it's really interesting. I was going so quickly at the end on part 7 that we really didn't catch the part of this where he says that you're going to not forget the words your eyes have seen. Did Moses take the tablets and pass them around? See, the Jewish community believes, it's kind of that sort of urban legend thing, but we don't know what really happened. They really believe that it was a full sensory experience at Mount Sinai. They heard, they saw, they felt, they smelled it, they tasted it. I mean, they believe that's why the people turned to Moses. We can't do this anymore lest we die. It's too fully overwhelming. I mean, could you imagine if you not only heard my voice, but you could taste it and smell it and see it and feel it all at the same time? That would be just like short circuit overload on the senses. And so he says here, guard yourself and guard your life, lest you forget the words your eyes have seen, unless they turn aside from your heart all the days of your life. Now also, I think maybe the words you've seen has to do with you've seen the blessing, you've seen the fruit, you've seen the result of those words. Can that maybe be a possibility there? What do you think of that? I mean, maybe when you think of those words and you don't think about what it looks like. Maybe I ought to use that more. I'm asking you to think about what it looks like. You guys have heard me say that 1,000 times, right? We look at things and we're reading these words and say, well, what does that look like in your life? We talk about the 2 great commands, loving Yahweh and loving your neighbor. Okay, what does that look like? So he's telling you need to guard after the words that your eyes have seen. You know what it's supposed to look like. And you've seen the results of it. Because if you don't guard, you will forget. It means that it will not be in your heart anymore. And this is all about the heart. What does Deuteronomy 8:2 say? He wants to see whether it's in your heart to guard his commands, to keep his commands. That is, in my opinion, the test that all of us has to go through and pass. The Deuteronomy 8:2 test. I know it doesn't say that specifically there. But it does, in my opinion, describe something that everybody has to go through. We are here to show him and demonstrate to him that it's in our heart to keep the covenant. What's the covenant? You shall obey diligently. Everything comes out of my mouth, and I will accept you as my people and take care of everything else. And so that's why Deuteronomy 8:2 fits right into that. He led them through the wilderness for 40 years to humble them, big piece of the puzzle, and to test and prove and see whether it was in their heart to keep the commandments. Well, that's what he's talking about here in chapter 4. Okay, so we haven't gotten to chapter 8 yet, but we've gotten to chapter 4, and he goes, look, you saw the words, and you need to guard after, but you got to make sure that if you forget, guess what's going to happen? It will maybe be turned aside from your heart, and then basically what's going to happen then? Disaster. So not only worry about you, he says, and you shall make them known to your children and your grandchildren. Okay, that was the question that came up later in the Q&A that I said I'd cover today. We are unfortunately dealing with generational splits in terms of belief, observance, covenant. We're not a cohesive nation. We're like the family or tribe of Jacob or of Judah, or Abraham when he was a cohesive group with family members and children and grandchildren all traveling and living together. The tribal sort of way of living. We're not in that anymore. We get to a certain age and we just go off and do whatever we want. That's what we do. We get to that age, we don't care anymore what our parents say, and we go off and do whatever we want. You guys all did that, and your children are now doing it to you. Welcome to their world. Your parents know exactly what that feels like. And some of you call your parents up and go, I don't understand, and they start laughing at you. Yeah, I've been praying you'd get to experience that. It's kind of like the mother's curse. Everybody know the mother's curse? I hope you have one just like you. You're all laughing. Anybody heard that curse? It works, doesn't it? See, but I'm not that smart. And I was a red, yellow, sarcastic, wise guy. So when my mother said that to me, I turned to her, looked her in the eye, and said, I hope I have two. And when my children turned 2, I called her and said, can you please take this away? No, actually, I said, I'm sorry. She goes, what are you sorry for? I said, that whole mother's curse thing. How do you reverse that? This isn't a joke. I did this. Ask my wife. Ask my mother. And all she did was laugh. She goes, it works. Okay. It does work. But actually, even if Mom never did it to you, it still works. You are going to have ones just like you. Okay? But that's not a joke. I really did that. I called her up and said, Mom, I'm sorry for whatever I did when I was 2. Oh, well, that's interesting. Why is that? You want to guess, Mom? All right. Anyway, not that my kids were awful. I just started to recognize what I must have been like and dealing with all those hard things, because I remember those days when she looked at me and said, ooh, I hope you have one just like you. One of those wonderful moments, those proud moments when Mom's going, I don't know who that is, Yes. Okay, but that's that thing here. It says, and you shall make them known to your children and grandchildren. But we don't have that society, that structure today. So I want you to be released from the pressure that if your children are already adults and they have children, and you raised your children a certain way and they are not easily departing it, that you are not obligated and responsible now to fix that problem. It's now his problem. Please don't feel you need to get in there, meddle with somebody else's family, because your children are no longer, under your authority. They have their own autonomy and authority. But this was supposed to be that you would do it and teach your children, and then they would continue doing it and teach their children, and you would be counsel and advisor as the elder to them. But if you do not actually have this relationship, you are not obligated to try to insert yourself into a place that you absolutely are not welcome. Now, if you are welcome, do it. But a lot of you know what I'm talking about. You have children that would not be happy if you tried to get in there and try to teach their children, or even if you want to try and teach them. They're already praying for you because they think you're lost. Right? Some of that out there? Your children? Because some of you grew up in the South where everybody and everybody's cousin is a former pastor, whatever it is. Because I can't tell you how many people come up and say, Rabbi, you don't understand. My brother's a pastor, my sister's a pastor, my father's a pastor, his father was a pastor, his mother was a pastor, everybody was a pastor. I didn't know there was that many. How many churches were there? Well, then you walk around the South, there's a church on every corner. There was a need for a lot of pastors. And so, sure, they were raised a certain way, and now you're the one who's changed. And you're going to think, I just read this verse. I'm supposed to go do this. Think of the context of it, though. Who is Moses? Well, first of all, who's talking here? Okay, it's Moses. Well, Yahweh is talking to Moses. Moses is talking, and he's telling them this here. This is a big sermon before going into the land. Who's he talking to? Corporate Israel. Israel as a nation. This isn't for every generation in the future and all of their children and grandchildren who may be doing anything. Is that fair? Okay, so please be released of that pressure and that guilt and that frustration that you can't, because nothing you can do except be the example, be the light. You walk it out the best you can and let them see the blessing you have. And then they might come to you and say, Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, Dad, whatever level it is, right? Children, grandchildren. What are you doing that's different? How come you seem to be doing good when the rest of us are going crazy? That's all you can do at this point. So you have to be at peace. You know, the greatest thing that Yahweh wants you to have is shalom. Shalom in the home, shalom in your life, shalom in all aspects of your life, that peace. And a lot of you, when you read Torah, it actually makes it worse and disturbs all your peace because you're thinking, oh no, I really screwed this up and now I got to go fix it. Well, that would only be true about the things you have control over, the things that you actually can change or fix. So please be encouraged that there are things you can do that with, and you better and should be doing it because he's expecting you to. He's expecting you absolutely to work on and do what you need to do about everything you have control over, authority over, and can do. And he will help you with all the things you can't do. And so you just have to accept that reality. So hopefully that makes sense and I took care of that. Because I know that for a lot of people, that's part of the counseling calls that I get when people call me up. See, all those people have to think I'm doing Illuminati things here. Do all kinds of hand signals. They go crazy on YouTube when I do that. I'm trying to bring my hand up like a phone, okay? But when you get counsel calls, this is something that I know a lot of you, especially you get older, so you have children and grandchildren, etc., you wonder, well, what can I do? Because when the grandchildren come over, you think, oh, great, I'm going to go ahead. Just make sure you're not usurping. You know, you can't usurp the authority of your children over their children. I have been in my parents' house and my in-laws' house, and both of them made the same mistake. I was standing right there. One of my children, when they were little, did something, and they went over to discipline them right when I was standing right there. And I said, excuse me, I'm right here. I get to decide what happens here. Don't need your help. That's usurping. And so we have to be careful with that. Once your children became parents, they're the authority in that child's life. And I don't care how much it breaks your heart and frustrates you, there's only so much you can do to give counsel to the parent. Now, when those children become adults, they may want to come and talk to you. Well, that's maybe a little different because now they're independent. But until they become that age of independence, in this country it's usually around 18, you need to respect that they're under a covering, especially if they're in their parents' house. It's a challenging thing. It's a challenging thing. Okay, let's go ahead and continue here. In verse 10, the day when you stood before Yahweh, your Elohim, at Horeb, Yahweh said to me, assemble the people to me, and I make them hear my words, so that they learn to fear me all the days they live on the earth, and teach them to their children. So the main thing that we're teaching the children is what? To fear him. What's the root cause? Really seriously, the very simplistic root cause of all your issues, Torah-wise and vertically, is not having a proper fear of Yahweh. I mean, at the root of everything that you possibly do wrong, it's not just because you prefer this and like that and have lust for this or lust for that or addicted to this or it's because you don't have a strong enough, appropriate fear of Yahweh. When I do that teaching, and I've done it in a lot of places as I go when I'm a guest speaker, because that is the beginning of it all. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, the beginning of understanding, it's the beginning. And that's why he says it here. He says, look, assemble the people, make them hear my words, so they learn to fear me. So what do the words have to do with fearing him? Because in the words he tells you, this is where we get that awe and reverence. We're awestruck by the awesome majesty of the stuff he offers us. And we should be afraid of the stuff he says will happen if we don't do what we're supposed to do. So that's the power of the words. When you hear about living forever, that's awesome. No more tears, no more stress, no more pain, no more suffering. That's incredible stuff. So that's where we get the awe and the reverence. But he also says that I have the ability to cause your life to be a living nightmare. And I can curse you, and even if I have to, snuff you out completely. if you continue to just be rebellious upon rebellious. That should make you afraid. Not afraid like in a wrong way, but just like realizing he's not kidding. And he can do what he says he can do. And it's funny because we like to believe the good part. Oh yeah, he can do that. He can give me eternal life and he can do all these wonderful things for me. Oh, but I'm not all that sure about the torture, killing, whatever stuff. He's got all of that power. That's where that fear of Yahweh comes in. So he says, assemble the people to me so I can make them hear my words so that they learn to fear me. So how do we learn to fear him? Through the words. Well, we learn to trust the words. We learn to believe in the words. We test out and do and see the results of obedience or disobedience to the words. So we learn. Sometimes we learn the hard way. Sometimes we learn the easy way, but we learn. If you're receptive to seeing the lesson as it's playing out in front of you. Some of you are banging your head against the wall because it's happening and you just refuse to receive the lesson. And we know this is not shocking because what did we read when we're going through the readings in Deuteronomy? And if you do this, I will curse you. And if you don't listen, I'll curse you 7 times more. And if you're not instructed by me in these things, I'll curse you. He's saying this is learning, it's instruction. But if you don't do it, you don't get it, well then after all, I'm going to have to just keep doing it again and again and again and again and again. I just want to see where I wanted to go with that. Okay, I'm not going to go look for it now. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense as we're going through this. The fear is the beginning. I mean, I almost should, every time people counsel with me and they're struggling with things, I said, you need to go back and work on your fear of Yahweh. You might want to pick up that teaching and listen to it, I don't know, once every month or so, just to remind you that's the core. That's the core of it all. If you haven't figured that out, nothing else is going to flow out of there. Without that, you're going to be very likely to do the things you shouldn't do or not do what you're supposed to do because you're not in that proper awe and reverence and fear. And to make it simple, for those of you who haven't heard the teaching, it's the fear of having him look down at you disappointed. In other words, you're afraid to have him hang his head low looking at you like, I can't believe you just did that. Why would you do that after all I've done for you? After all the instruction and guidance he gave you, why would you do that? That's the look you should be afraid of. Men, women, you've seen your spouse do this. You know you don't like that look. You know that look. I'm not saying that to be funny either. There's lots of things you can do in your marriage, and okay, they get mad or this, that, but oh no, that look is the thing you really don't want to see. Because that's not when you necessarily get yelling or screaming. You know you did something and they're really disappointed, and that's a different look. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay? Children know what that is too. When your parents look at you, instead of getting all mad, yelling and screaming and punishing, and they look at you like, I'm just totally disappointed in you. Do you want to disappoint the creator of the universe? Do you want to disappoint Mashiach? And that's the fear. Verse 11, and you came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire to the heart of the heavens, darkness, cloud, and thick darkness. And Yahweh spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard a voice of words, but saw no form. You only heard a voice. Now this is very literal, but I'm going to take it for a second into something much more allegorical here, or it's hinting at in a remez form or either midrashic form. He spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. Remember the baptism of fire teaching. What's the baptism of fire? It's when he tests you with trials to see how well you did after you went through the water and filling of the Ruach. Right? You went through the water, you're washed clean. The Ruach then helps to fill you with the ability to gain knowledge and understanding and instruction so that you can then go and do what you got to do. And then the trial comes as a pop quiz. And during the pop quiz, you should hear him speak to you out of the fire. If you're listening, you'll hear him. I don't mean a real voice, but you'll hear him leading you to understand what you needed to glean out of the fire experience. He said, you heard a voice of words, but saw no form. You only heard a voice. And that also kind of happens in that fire experience. It's not like he's just going to show up and appear to you and say, okay, thank you for taking the pop quiz. Now let's go ahead and review. but you may allow that still small voice to speak to you. He made known to you his covenant. He made known to you his covenant, which he commanded you to do. The 10 words, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. And Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you laws and write rulings for you to do them in the land which you pass over to possess. Now, there are those that will say the covenant is limited to the 10 words. No. But those are the ones he spoke to them, and then he stopped talking to them and only talked to Moses. Be careful, we're not misunderstanding what's going on here. He spoke to you out of the fire. You heard his voice, saw no form, only heard the voice speaking just the 10 words. So some out there are trying to teach, well, the whole covenant is just the 10 words, the 10 commandments. No. The 10 commandments were the part they heard, all of them together. Context, context, context. Be careful with this. And Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you laws and write rulings for you to do them in the land which you pass over to possess. So Yahweh then said, fine, I will work through Moses. And he said, he commanded me to teach you the laws. So here we had an opportunity to learn directly from the Almighty, and we said, no. See, this is kind of like Adam creating that quote-unquote fallen state. Well, Moses is creating the path for the rest of the journey, which is we don't get to learn directly from Yahweh. We rejected that. Now, that's going to get changed when Yeshua comes and sits on the throne. And then the law will go forth from Zion, the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. But here, going forward, he's working through men, anointed, appointed, men granted. But through men, he told me, he says, Moses, he says, you go and teach them these laws, because that's what they said. They said, Moses, you teach us. Let Yahweh tell you and you teach us. That's in Exodus 20. He says, and Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you the laws, the right rulings, and for you to do them in the land you pass over to possess. See, that's part of the covenant. Because remember, the covenant wasn't only do the 10 words. What was the covenant? You will do everything I say. Now, he didn't just say you'll do only the things you heard me say. He said, Moses, you go tell them everything I said. And there are verses where it says, and everything Yahweh said, Moses wrote them down. And so that's him speaking through his anointed, appointed conduit or teacher to the people. He says, therefore, diligently guard yourselves. Guard what? Yourself. See, before it's like guard the commands, guard the laws, guard this, guard the words. Now he's telling you, diligently guard yourself. Watch over yourself. Protect yourself from what? He says, diligently guard yourselves because you saw no form when Yahweh spoke to you in Horeb at the midst of the fire, lest you should do corruptly. So now you got to watch over yourself to make sure you don't do corruptly. So you need to be on red alert, high alert to know that there's a possibility that if you're not paying attention, you could do something corruptly. Otherwise, why would he say it? And now he gives a specific example here of idolatry. He says, unless you do corruptly and shall make yourselves a carved image in the form of any figure, the likeness of a male or a female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, or likeness of any winged bird that flies in the heavens, the likeness of any creature that creeps on the ground, or the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth, and lift up your eyes to the heavens and shall see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the host of the heavens, and you shall be drawn away into bowing down to them and serving them, which Yahweh your Elohim has allotted to all the peoples under all the heavens. Now, this comes up every time we cover this in the Torah portions. I'll cover it real briefly here. This is talking about specifically the things that you would make that you would bow down to. Some of you are outdoorsmen, and so you like to have something like maybe something that represents some animals, like deer or other animals you might have a little figurine of, and just stuff that you like to have hanging on the wall or whatever, or your fish or something, or maybe like my aunt, she collects penguins, and so she likes penguins. The thing is, she's never bound down to them as far as I know. So some of you are all worried about all these things you collect. Don't worry about things you collect. There's a thing called art, and there are things called idols. So if you own anything that anybody ever used as an idol, or you've ever used it as an idol, that's a problem. if you collect art that is nature, because nature is beautiful and spectacular, that is not idolatry just because you made an image. The Hebrew bears out that which is to be used in worship towards an Elohim. An idol was not just anything made as a sculpture or a piece of art. And so let's be careful with that, because I know some of you can get really afraid that somehow you're messing up because you happen to collect something, whatever it is you collect. Because you like those things, because there's a reason you like the animal or the art or whatever it is. It's something that just appeals to you. I like the imagery of a rhinoceros. I've read a book that used it as a metaphor for success, and so it talks about just charging ahead and not worrying about plowing through the trees and whatever you do. And so I have a picture of one on my wall. I found a nice one I liked on the computer, printed it out, and stuck it on the wall. It kind of reminds me of a mindset and an attitude. I don't worship it. I don't pray to it. I didn't actually carve it into an image. It was actually a printed out picture. But you understand what I'm saying. Some of you, my daughter loves butterflies. And so she has all kinds of butterflies in her luggage, on her artwork, on her hanging in different places in her room. She likes butterflies. Don't think that's idolatry. Let's get a balance here. But if you happen to be someone who likes antiques and you go to an antique store and you see something, you might want to find out if it was ever used as an idol. That you don't need to have. Are we clear? Okay? Yahweh made the beauty for us to appreciate, and he created art as a way to appreciate it. And so let's find that balance. Okay, continuing. Where are we up to? 20. But Yahweh has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Mitzrayim, to be his people, an inheritance as it is today. And Yahweh was enraged with me because of your words, and swore that I would not pass over the Jordan, and that I would not enter the good land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance. Look, we've seen that there's been this whole emotional challenge for Moses. He did so many things. He worked so hard. He really wanted to go in the land, and Yahweh said, no, we're going to talk about this no more. This is a real hard thing for Moses. Could you imagine working as hard as he did to get to the end of a goal? And this is back to the color code stuff that we like to use, and as for the fun of personality stuff. This is a very red person. All Reds care about is the result and the goal and the achievement. And he's right there, and he's like, he could touch it, he could almost taste it, it's right there. And Yahweh says, nope, you don't get to do it. So he's still struggling with this. Verse 22. For I am to die in this land, and I'm not passing over the Jordan, but you are passing over and shall possess the good land. Guard yourselves lest you forget the covenant of Yahweh. What was the covenant? You agreed to do everything he said. He said, guard yourself, lest you forget that. And by the way, that may also be a hint to the fact that Yahweh hadn't stopped talking yet. Yahweh may tell them more things. He sent prophets to tell them things. Like when he told them through Jeremiah, look, Babylon is coming. Submit yourself. Don't fight them. This is part of Yahweh's plan. When Rehoboam wanted to go after Jeroboam to bring back and restore the kingdom, and Yahweh said, no, this is of me. So he's telling them, guard yourself lest you forget the covenant of Yahweh. Whatever he says, whenever he says it. Because Yeshua said a few things, didn't he? Yeshua is the same Yahweh saying it here. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, this isn't a oneness doctrine. Go listen to the Father and the Son teaching. Do you know the Father and the Son? So he's saying, guard yourself lest you forget the covenant of Yahweh your Elohim, which he made with you. And you shall make for yourselves a carved image in the form of whatever Yahweh your Elohim has forbidden you. For Yahweh your Elohim is consuming fire, a zealous, ardent God, El, or whatever word you have in there, when you bring forth children and grandchildren, and shall grow old in the land, and shall do corruptly, and make a carved image in the form of whatever, and shall do what is evil in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim to provoke him, I shall call the heavens and earth to witness against you on that day, that you soon completely perish from the land, which you pass over the Jordan to possess. You do not prolong your days in it, but are completely destroyed. He's not playing around. Does anybody think that Yahweh is playing games here? I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say he's deadly serious. He is dead serious. He's dead serious enough to to have Yeshua come and die so that we could have life, knowing we were going to screw this whole thing up, that we were going to do corruptly and need him to die. And actually, we did corruptly way going back to Adam in the beginning. That's why he was slain even what? Before the foundation. I shall call the heavens and earth to witness against you. He says, and Yahweh shall scatter you, verse 27, you among all the peoples, and you shall be left few in number among the Gentiles where Yahweh drives you. How do you think it feels to be, you know what? Your fathers have died in the desert. They didn't go in the land like they were supposed to. You've been waiting all these years to finally get to go in. Here you are excited to go ahead and get it done, and he's already telling you you're going to mess it up. And you're like, come on, can't you have a little faith in me? Nope. I know you. And what does Yahweh say? He says, I know you. You've been stiff-necked since the day I knew you. He says, Yahweh's going to scatter you among the peoples. He says, and there you shall serve, verse 28, mighty ones, the works of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But from there you shall seek Yahweh your Elohim and shall find him when you search for him with what? All your heart and all your being. And I don't think that just means you're searching so much as that you're ready to get committed to the covenant. Because the covenant requires all of that. All your heart, all your being. Are you ready to commit to the covenant? Because that's what you're going to do when you're from there. When he says, but from there, that means where? From being scattered among all the Gentile nations, from all the peoples of the earth that are not Israel corporate. You are to seek him with everything you have. Not looking for some truth, looking for all the truth. Not doing a little of it, doing all of it the best you can to the best of your ability with all your might, with all your strength. He says, in your distress, when all these words shall come upon you in the latter days, then you shall return to Yahweh your Elohim and shall obey his voice. There's proof that the renewed covenant is the same covenant. It's just being renewed. Now, when you say renewed, that confuses people. It will be absolutely a brand new covenant with the same exact terms. Because after all, you break a contract, you have to write a new one. So the contract was broken. So now we have to write a new one. That doesn't mean it doesn't have to be any different. It could be exactly the same as the old one. Here's the wording. Let's make sure we didn't miss this. He says, in your distress, what? When you're seeking Yahweh from the place that he scattered you among the Gentiles, in your distress, when all these words come upon you that I've already said are going to happen, which, by the way, is part of the proof that Yahweh is who he is, because what he says comes to be. He says, in your distress, when that's all happening in the latter days. It's not saying when it just happens, because it's going to happen a lot earlier than now. I mean, they started getting scattered way, way, way before, even before Yeshua, the scattering began. A good long time before Yeshua. And so here we have him saying, in your distress, in the latter days, then you shall return to Yahweh. Not just the seeking and asking, that stuff we do. He says, now you're going to return to Yahweh and shall obey his voice. That's the covenant. Why doesn't Christianity teach this? I mean, after all, they're claiming latter days, and they're claiming that they're in the end times, and they're claiming all these things. And in those latter days, you're going to obey the voice as originally covenanted. What were the terms? You agree to obey everything I say, to obey my voice. There it is. So in the latter days, what is Jeremiah 31 talking about? The same thing as Exodus 19. Same type of covenant, no different. Only difference is what? This time we won't break it. He says you're not going to do the same thing this time. This time you're going to keep it because you'll have gone out there and seen what it's like when you don't. And you will have made teshuvah. You will have done repentance. You'll have turned around. It says, and you will come back and return to Yahweh. That's what teshuvah looks like. He says, for Yahweh your Elohim is a compassionate El. He does not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore to them. Now that's a different covenant. That's the covenant of I have promised you that I will do these things to you and to your children for generations to come. He said to Abraham, you will be the father of many nations. So those are promises in that covenant thing. Remember, we've said there's lots of different covenants. What you're worried about and need to deal with is something called the covenant. The covenant that started at Sinai with, you agree to do what he says. Not complicated. All right? Where did I leave off? Verse 32. So Yahweh's not going to forget his covenant in verse 31. Which is interesting because it turned out to be a 31, just like Jeremiah 31 and verse 31, and all these covenantal verses with a 31 in it. That's kind of interesting. It could be just random. New from the Bible code. Rabbi Steve says there's a 31 significance here. Or just coincidence. Film at 11. Okay, so they don't ever do that anymore. Everybody's watching 24-hour cable now. There's no big thing to wait till 11 o'clock to see or anything, right? Okay, verse 32. How far am I going with this anyway? 40, okay. For ask now of the days that are past, which were before you since the day that Elohim created man on the earth, and ask from one end of the heavens to the other end of the heavens, whether there has been a word as great as this, or has been heard like this. Now, he's already said this, but now he's even telling them, look, go check it out. Has anybody ever had a story like this, where they could say, this is our experience with our Elohim? Oh, they got a lot of big monuments and statues and all kinds of carvings, but did they ever do this? Did you ever hear the voice? Did you ever see the signs and wonders on this kind of scale? We're talking about the pillar of fire, the pillar of cloud, and all the other things that you experienced. Parting of the sea? No. You went up to a piece of stone, you asked for a bunch of stuff, you gave an offering of some sort, and then went on with your life. And then if something went well, you gave credit to the piece of stone, and if it didn't, you just figured it was you. There was nothing like this. So he's encouraging them, go check it out. See if you can compare it. Is there anything like this? Nothing's like this. Has a people heard the voice of Elohim speaking out of the midst of the fire as you have heard and live? Or has Elohim tried to go and take for himself a nation from the midst of a nation? Is there any story like that goes along with a nation being pulled out of a nation by an Elohim? Oh, you got all kinds of nations trying to get out from under each other politically, secular, cultural stuff. But this is Elohim pulling a nation out from within a nation. By trials, by signs, by wonders, by battle, by a strong hand and outstretched arm, and by great fearsome deeds, according to all that Yahweh your Elohim did for you in Mitzrayim before your eyes. He's saying, don't forget, you watched all this. You witnessed all of this. And if you didn't, your parents did, because they were all there. This is only 40 years later. There are people that remember the stories being passed down. There were also people that were there that were under 20. And so now they're still there. They remember. Remember, it was only the men 20 and over, and all that generation that didn't get to go. He says, you have been shown it, to know that Yahweh himself is Elohim, there is no one beside him. From the heavens he let you hear his voice to instruct you, and on the earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers, therefore he chose their seed after them, and brought you out of Mitzrayim with his presence and his great power, to drive out from before you nations greater and stronger than you, to bring you in to give you their land as an inheritance as it is today. And you shall know today and shall recall to your heart that Yahweh himself is Elohim in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. And you can clap for that. And you shall guard his laws and his commands, which I command you today, so that it is well with you and with your children after you, so that you prolong your days on the soil which Yahweh, your Elohim, is giving you for all time. So he closes it there, verse 40. I know there's more to the chapter, but this is where the point ends. He closes it with, and you shall guard. How many times in 4 chapters has he told them to guard the commands, guard the laws, guard the right rulings, guard yourself? I mean, almost every 3 or 4 verses, if not more, it's there. But how many of you really guard this stuff? Some of you barely remember it or aware of it and sneaks up on you. Any of you don't raise your hand now, you don't have to embarrass yourself. Anybody have Shabbat sneak up on them on a weekly basis? Anybody have more often the feast all of a sudden show up? It's like, where did that come from? I get phone calls, and don't think I remember which one of you it was because I don't. But I get phone calls from some of you a week or 2 before trumpets going, when's trumpets? When's Sukkot? And the when's trumpet question, I guess, is okay for people that don't know what the calendar is, etc. But they ask when Sukkot is. The Sukkot date's been on the website since we finished Passover. Actually, no, for all of last year before we even got to Passover. I put all the dates for the whole year on there in advance. Been there the whole time. But it's like sneaking up on them. Or they'll say to me, well, I'm not sure I can go, because I didn't get time to really tell my bosses. Wait, but you've been with us for 2 years. How did you not know to tell your bosses you needed the time off? Well, I forgot. You're not guarding. Are you guarding the commands? This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is actually literally life and death. And now you have to turn there, but in Deuteronomy 30, what does Moses say to you? I lay before you life and death. Okay, let's see, verse 19 of chapter 30. I've called the heavens and earth as witnesses today against you. Kind of the same thing here in one of the verses in chapter 4, the witnesses of heaven and earth. He said, I've set before you life and death, blessing and the curse, therefore choose life so that you live. He's pleading with them. He says, you need to love Yahweh, your Elohim, obey his voice, and cling to him because he is your life and the length of your days. But do you believe that? You say amen, and you get all excited and you clap. But what happens when things get to that push comes to shove place? That's when we find out what you really are kind of made out of. That's why he lets you go into trials. You wonder, when you go into trial, I wonder why he's picking on me, or what did I do wrong? No, he's just trying to see what you're made of. He's just giving you a pop quiz. It's not like, when you stub your toe, you think, I must have done something wrong, so I stubbed my toe. That's not a trial. That's just an accident. Probably because you woke up at a time nobody should wake up. Any time before noon, that is, in case you were wondering. And you were too tired and you stubbed your toe. It had nothing to do with, I must have done something wrong. Well, yes, you tried to wake up before noon. That was foolish, and that was happens. Okay. I'll instruct you guys. You want to get discipled? We work from 12 to 4. That's what we disciple. That's 12 noon to 4 a.m. in case you were confused. It's not a 4-hour thing. Okay? We disciple from 12 to 4. Okay. It's a 16-hour deal. Where are we in time? We got time for the next one. Okay, so just to reiterate, in this chapter we talked about how he made known to you his covenant. That was at the beginning of the chapter. He tells you not to forget the covenant, and he also tells you, in case you were wondering, he's not going to forget. Even if you forget, he's not going to forget. That's the 3 big takeaways out of this chapter here. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 8. I wonder what we're going to find there. We've already talked about this. We can begin in verse 1. Guard to do every command which I command you today. He didn't mean just the 10 words, do you think, right there? When he said every command, he's just talking about the 10 commandments, right? No? But see, this is kind of the stuff that's out there. That whole Melchizedekian thing out there is trying to say, oh, no, only the things before the golden calf, or only the things, no. Can we know and admit and absolutely know that in Deuteronomy, all that stuff already happened? Did it not? They're already through all of that wilderness, all of that mess, and they're at the Jordan. So when he says, guard to do every command which I command you, that includes all of the Torah. You see, some of you guys are saying, well, when are you going to do that Melchizedekian thing? Why do I need to do any more than what I just did? Stop being so naive and foolish to listen to these people trying to give you a justification, not this whole sanctification, to justify your doing less. You're buying into it because you don't want to guard and keep all the commands. You're failing the test that we're about to get to in verse 2. You're demonstrating that it is not in your heart to keep his commandments. I promise you one thing, absolutely guaranteed. I'll stand here and as the sun, moon, Yah, whatever is my witness. Remember we talked about vows, be careful with that. As Yah is my witness, you will not get in trouble for doing more. But you could absolutely get in a lot of trouble for not doing it all. Be careful with buying into anybody telling you you don't have to do stuff. Oh, well, because of here in Hebrews and this confusion about what was being talked about, and over here in Galatians, because after all, whatever, that undermines everything that Moses taught us in Deuteronomy. Why do I need to spend 5, 6, 10 parts explaining somebody else's teaching on foolishness? Because there's a part of you that wants to believe them so you don't have to do everything. Let's be honest. So why are you all still waiting for that teaching? I've said this in many teachings. You don't need that teaching. Now, I may still do it because there needs to be something out there to be up against, like shining light, like we talked about earlier in the service, shining light on a problem. But here it is right here. This is in Deuteronomy at the Jordan, crossing over into the land. Moses saying, guard to do everything. He didn't say do everything except when Yeshua comes, the stuff that came after the golden calf. Now, he did have forethought to tell you, you're going to get scattered when you mess this thing up, and you're going to go do this, and then you're going to come back. But apparently he had no forethought to tell us that, hey, when the golden calf thing happened, those are laws that were against you, and later on you won't have to do them. Well, that's not in there anywhere. And by the way, that's not in Hebrews or Galatians either. But for the mind that is susceptible to the negative influences of the people, or the mind that is not ready to obey every word that comes forth out of the mouth of Yah, they're confused. They're looking for the less, not the more. The minimum, not the maximum. I'll say it again. If you do more and it turns out you didn't need to, I promise you, you're not getting punished. Because you still passed the test. It was still in your heart to keep his commands, wasn't it? But if you do less, don't tell me, well, because I did the research. No, you did less because you wanted to do less. You were glad to receive it, and you were glad to find out you didn't have to do it. So so you grabbed onto it, like a fish to water, or whatever idiom you want. I mean, you just jumped on it. And there are people out there that you know personally that did that. Because they are not ready to do all. They were hoping to do less. Verse 2. And you shall remember that Yahweh your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you. That's the biggest problem right there. A person who's been humbled is not going to be thinking for a second to do less. They're going to say, I want to be careful. I want to be safe. I'm going to guard. I'm going to do everything I can. And if it turns out I didn't have to, hey, it's okay. I'm still going to get the words, well done, good and trustworthy servant. But if you start latching onto excuses to do less, where is that going to leave you if it turns out you're wrong? He says that he led you through the wilderness to humble you. So I have often taught, it doesn't say it here, but I think this is a metaphor, a shadow picture, a type of our lives today. Don't we have, in a sense, aren't we walking through a wilderness journey of sorts? And in that journey, what do we need more than anything else? To be humbled. And in the humbling, he's then going to test us. He said he humbled you to prove, to know what is in your heart, whether you are going to guard his commands or not. He wants to know whether it's in your heart to do it, not if you do it. In other words, if it's in your heart, you're going to make the effort, and sometimes you may fall short, but you want to do it. You're going to try to do it. You're going to be disappointed in yourself when you fall short, and brush yourself off, get up right away and fix it and go forward. He wants to see the heart behind it. He's not expecting you to be perfect. He wants you to want to be perfect. I don't know how many times I've had to say that, and still people don't get that. Because some people out there get very depressed because they feel like they're never going to get there. You don't have to get there. You have to just want to and make every possible, with all your heart, with all your being, make the effort to do it. And you will make, look, can everybody agree that Paul made the effort? Anybody have any problem with knowing that Paul did as hard as and good as he could? And he still said that he had a problem in his members where that which he wanted to do, he didn't do, and that which he didn't want to do, he did. There was a conflict there. And he also talks about a thorn in his side, whether that was spiritual or physical, we don't know. But it's an examination of the heart. There's no surprise that we did 64 parts of that teaching, because the heart is the matter. Of course, some of you out there keep referring to the teaching as the matters of the heart. No, that's a Hallmark series. Okay, that's not my teaching series. Okay, it doesn't take place in Alaska or Canada or anyplace else. It's about the heart. Okay? The heart is the matter. The heart is the problem. It's the issue. So Deuteronomy 8:2, look at how it's worded. You're going through this journey for what purpose? So that you can get humbled, and then he can watch and see and test and prove where your heart's at. So all you need to do is see, as a matter of fact, he's more interested when you mess up than when you don't mess up to see what you do next. Because after all, doing the right thing sometimes is very easy to do. Sometimes you would have done those things even before you knew about Torah. I'm sure that most of you would never have, you wouldn't have stolen anything. You wouldn't have committed murder. You wouldn't have committed adultery. A lot of the Torah you probably wouldn't have done even if you didn't know it was Torah. What he wants to see, though, is when you do mess up, what do you do next? Do you feel bad about it? Do you repent about it? Do you own it? Do you go to him and say, Abba, I messed up? Sometimes you got to go to the person you messed up with and own it and say, I messed up. And so do you repent? Do you do the whole repentance process? We got the teaching on that that's out there. And then make teshuvah, get back on the path. I think he's much more excited about that moment than about the moments when you're just doing everything right. Kind of like the verse that says, what, just because you did everything right, do you think you're such a big deal servant? He says, no, if you did exactly what you were told, he calls you a useless servant. Because you didn't go above and beyond. And plus he wants to see, what do you do when you mess up? Not that I'm encouraging you to mess up and then show him what you do. Don't misunderstand. He knows we struggle. But in the forever kingdom, sort of scenario, that's for Curtis. Okay, scenario. In the forever kingdom situation, he wants to know in that time frame of forever that he knows your heart and there will be no rebellion. There will be no problems or issues because your desire is to be perfect. And he needs to see it. He needs to watch. Oh, but Yahweh knows everything. Yes, and for whatever reason, he's chosen to need to see it. And so we need to show him. That's why I call this the Deuteronomy 8:2 test. I don't think anybody's ever said that other than me. I don't think anybody still says it other than me, and it's irrelevant. But that's the way I see it. This whole life is that test. The reason you were born was to see if you can pass that test. But you can't even take the test until he opens your eyes, opens your ears, and opens your heart. So don't think for a second all your friends and family are being tested according to Deuteronomy 8:2 because they're not handed an exam and a pencil to fill it out until their eyes are open and ears are open, etc. Hopefully you all understand that. But once they are, you are now subject to that test. And if you listen to Millennium Kingdom teaching, you know that I believe everybody gets that one time to take the exam. And this may not be their time. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to that teaching. Okay? Okay. All of that, and we only got into verse 2. And I'm planning to go all the way to 20. I don't know how far we're going to get here. Verse 3. So he did humble you. He said he led you through the wilderness to humble you, and he did. He humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. So there's a humbling, and there's a connection to hunger. Isn't that interesting? Didn't we just go through something where we got real hungry? What was that called? Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonements. And so what was that also? When it talks about afflicting yourself, there's a humbling there to recognize that you need, that you desire and you need. But also there's a connection to the Beatitudes. Children learned that all week. My wife is in here after doing all the children's programs, so give her put a little smile on her face to mention something from the Beatitudes. And so we have in verse 6, blessed are those who hunger for what? They're hungry and thirsty for righteousness. What do we see here in verse 3? He humbled them back in Deuteronomy 8 and let them suffer and fed them with manna, which they did not know, nor did their fathers know, to make them know what? That you don't live just by food and physical things, but you must live by every word that comes out of the mouth of Yahweh. And so if you are to live by those words, to me that makes total sense why that's the covenant. The covenant is, if you would just obey the words that are the bread of life, the words that you need that are going to sustain you, then why wouldn't you want to make that covenant? Because after all, you should already know that you live by every word that comes out of the mouth of Yahweh, not just by bread alone. Oh, you need physical bread because you're a physical being. You need food. But that's not going to give you life without living by every word. It may give you physical life up to a point, but this isn't the real, this is a type and shadow of what's coming. We are literally shadow pictures. We are types and shadows of what we're looking forward to. This is nothing in terms of life compared to what's coming. And for that life, you need to have learned how to live by every word that comes out of his mouth. And that's only going to work if you can trust it and believe it, have full emunah about it. Amen. Continuing here in verse 4. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. Thus you shall know that in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so Yahweh your Elohim disciplines you. So he said, look, I put you through this test. I gave you the food. Your clothes didn't wear out, etc. But you saw through all the whole process, even though I gave you all that stuff, there was discipline. I wasn't just spoiling you. He didn't bring them out of Egypt and just plop them right down in the land with no conflict, no issues, and nothing but wonderful stuff all around them. They were not ready for that. They would have ruined it. Actually, they did. Because they still weren't ready. They had not, as a nation and individually as well, figured out how to live by every word that comes out of the mouth of Yahweh. They hadn't learned the fear of Yahweh. They hadn't learned to guard the commands, to guard themselves. They hadn't learned any of that stuff. So what did they do? They wrecked the place. And so what did he do? He says, you're not wrecking my place. Get out. Tell you what, I'll make it easier for you. I'll have somebody come and get you. And it's not a taxi service. It wasn't Uber. It was Babylon. And it was Assyria that came and took them out. He says, thus you shall know that in your heart. So not only so this is relational, it's not informational. You know in your head, that's informational. You're going to know in your heart. You're going to have a relationship with this. You're going to have an understanding that's much deeper, that as a man disciplines his son, so Yahweh Elohim, your Elohim, disciplines you. And therefore you shall guard the commands. He said it again. He said it in verse 1, and now he said it again in verse 6 here. Wow. He asks again in verse 2, actually. He mentions guard the man almost every verse. Therefore you shall guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For Yahweh your Elohim is bringing you into a good land, a land of streams of water. See, now he's going to give them the carrot. He's been giving them a little bit of the stick, saying, this is what you need to be afraid of. He said, because it's worth it. That's more or less what he's saying, isn't it? He says he's going to discipline you, and he's going to test you, and he's going to humble you, and he's going to do all these things. Why? Because you need to be trained, matured, and your character right to live in this paradise of a place. He's sending you into a good land full of streams of water and fountains and springs that flow out of the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you eat bread without scarcity, in which you do not lack at all, a land whose stones are iron and out of whose hills you dig copper. And you shall eat and be satisfied, and shall bless Yahweh your Elohim for the good land which he has given you. That whole thing says, and we do this after the meals and stuff, that you recognize that you put you through the rough times to get you to the good times, so you can recognize that that was the point of it all along. That you eat and are satisfied and realize that Yahweh has blessed you with these things because you went through the process and came out of the other side, changed into his image. That's essentially what it's saying. Verse 11, be on guard lest you forget Yahweh your Elohim by not guarding his commands and his right rulings and his laws which I command you today, lest you get complacent, basically, lest you eat and are satisfied and build lovely houses and dwell in them, and in your herds and your flocks increase, and your silver and gold are increased, and you shall have, and all you have shall be increased, that your heart then becomes lifted up, and you forget Yahweh your Elohim is the one who gave you all this stuff. He's the one who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage, who led you through the great awesome wilderness, fiery serpents and scorpions and thirst, where there was no water, who brought you water out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, in order to humble you and try you, to do you good in the end. It's all to humble you and test you, Deuteronomy 8:2, so that ultimately he can do you good in the end. And then you shall say in your heart, my power and my strength and my hand have made all this wealth for me. Because remember, he's talking about here that people would forget, oh, I'm so successful and everything's so wonderful. And we've seen this happen. Some of you are wondering, why is my life such a struggle? Because that's the best place for you to be. Needing him for everything is much better than having everything. I know that sounds kind of warped in our fleshly sense, our worldly mind. That doesn't mean you cannot get yourself to the place through your efforts to at least be above water better than you are. But he may just want you to be comfortably just a little bit above water, in a much better place than just being out on the beach, having a great time, and thinking you don't need him anymore. He says, and you shall say in your heart, my power, my strength, my hand have made me all this wealth. Oh, but you shall remember Yahweh your Elohim, for it is he who gave you that power, the power to get wealth in order to establish his covenant. That's why we went through all this. The whole point of the wealth was to help him establish the covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is today. So here in verse 18, that's the really important connection. What does wealth have to do with establishing his covenant? Two things. One is it shows you and demonstrates to you there is blessing in all of this. The other is that with your wealth, we can reach other people. Because in a world that did you think that Yahweh knew we live in a world where you can't do anything for free? You're not going to reach anybody without any money. You're not going to reach anybody without the internet or without CDs or without whatever. All this stuff costs something. So why do we need the wealth? To be effective. We're conduits. We're flow-throughs. The wealth isn't just there so that you can enjoy things, although it is there to some degree to do that so that you can say, look at what believing and following and obeying Yahweh brings. And then use it to help share that message. But be careful lest you think, oh, no, my strength, my power, I didn't need him for this. Be very careful with that. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Let's go ahead and pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Father, we just want to come before you now and make sure that when we have eaten, we are satisfied, and we are blessed with abundance, that we do not forget. That, Father, we understand that you have made known to us our covenant, and that we are not to forget. We're to guard after the commands and the right rulings and all that you do. We're to do it with all of our heart and all of our being. We're to fear you in all things. And we understand that you don't forget the things that you've done. You don't forget the commitments that you've made. And you expect us likewise to do the same. Father, we just want to thank you now for the relationship, opening our eyes, opening our ears and our hearts so that we can truly know you, the true living Elohim. That, Father, that we can have what we have through the Messiah, through your Son, Yeshua, through our Messiah, that relationship, that discipleship, that example, so that we truly can be changed from what we are into what he is and what you are. So, Father, we want to thank you for all, asking that you continue the work that you started in us, knowing that we trust that you will finish and complete, provided we make every effort to demonstrate the Deuteronomy 8:2 test, that it's in our heart. And as long as we show that it's in our heart, we trust and know that you will complete the work that we've started, or that we should say that you started in us. So, Father, we thank you. We praise you, giving you all glory and all honor, in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. Amen. Okay, so I went to verse 18 there. Okay, awesome. I hope that was a blessing. I know we're repeating a lot of stuff, but guess what? That's because he's repeating a lot of stuff. Some of you are thinking, Rabbi, you said all that already. I'm just reading what he said. I mean, in one chapter, he says the same thing 5 times. You know why he does that? Because we're stiff-necked and hard-headed. And some of you are mocking the fact that it's being repeated, and yet you're still not doing it. And by the way, that's why after Moses says it 57 million times, or said Yahweh through Moses, then the prophets go ahead and say it. Then Yeshua goes ahead and says it. Then the psalmist and David in the Psalms goes ahead and says it. Then Solomon went ahead and said it. We'll find it everywhere. Then the writers of the apostolic writings, Peter and James and John and Paul, they go ahead and say it. We're slow. We're kind of dense sometimes. And so he has to say it a lot. Because we're what do we call the children of Israel? You ever work with a child? How many times do you have to say it? Some of you are thinking, I haven't gotten to that number yet. They're still not listening. Might be more than 70 times 7. You might do that in one burst of like, stop it. No, stop. No. You might get 70 times 7 right there. Come here. No, come. No, stop. No, come here. He feels the same way. But he's dealing with adults that are supposed to be adults, but we're the children of Israel. Do you know there's not a single verse referring to the adults of Israel? I wonder why that is. All right, so this is the afterburn time. We do have a little bit of time. I was managing to kind of squeeze this into a little bit of time so we can at least have some Q&A. So if you do have any questions or comments about the teaching today specifically, or the teaching series, you can go ahead and do that. If you're on live stream, and some of you may be new to this ministry and have not heard the other teachings, especially the ones that I referenced specifically, then what you want to make sure to do, thank you, by the way. Manny did send me during the teaching a picture of me with the hand up going, he said, Illuminati confirmed. I almost skipped a beat reading the teaching when I saw that pop up. I'm just basically a cool surfer dude going hang 10. Okay, so, all right. So anyway, I was just saying something that completely got derailed. Okay, so if it's about this teaching, I get that. If you have questions about some of the things I referenced, please go listen to the teaching first. Because if you call me or call the number, 423-8, whatever, if you call our number or contact us, I'm going to send you there anyway. Don't be offended. That is the best way to answer your question. Now, after you've listened to the teaching and you still have a question, which is certainly possible, then you can call and I'll talk to you. So when I mentioned the millennium and kingdom, or I mentioned the Father and the Son teaching, or whatever I mentioned, and by the way, I have no problem doing this as far as requiring you to listen to a teaching before answering a question, because they're all free. It's not like I'm saying you have to buy this teaching and then I'll talk to you. It's free. It's everywhere. It's on our website. It's on YouTube. It's on iTunes. It's on Podomatic. I mean, it's wherever. You can find it. And as a matter of fact, if you still can't find it, you can contact us and we'll mail it to you free. How's that? And I'm not bragging, but who else does that? And I'm saying because they should. Oh, no, if you want a copy of today's broadcast, a donation of any sort, blah, 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 blah. Oh, really? Come on. Why are we charging for this stuff? If you're blessed by it and he wants to inspire you to send something in, he will and you will. I don't need to ask for it. My job is just to make it available. And so it is. Okay, who wants to go first? Where's the mic? Nate, go ahead. Oh, in the back, okay.
Which is one of the reasons why I picked you as my rabbi. Because if it was Yahweh's way and it was his words that you felt the people needed, you would give it away. You wouldn't, So anyway, my question, and I have one from another person here that didn't want to use the mic because they're sick. My question, Rabbi, is for Moshe, when Yahweh told him, you will not go into the Jordan, is it possible that this was one of the final tests to see if Moses would do everything that Yahweh told him to do?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, certainly some of us would have been tempted to say, no, I'm right here, I'm going in. A lot of it, but see, he already saw the Israelites after he told them to not go in the land, and they didn't listen. That didn't go so well, did it? So I think Moses knew enough, but certainly it could have been a final test. I don't think there was any doubt that Moses wasn't going to go, but he did want to ask. And that was kind of a test that he didn't do well with because he did ask and he pushed it a little bit. But that's why we have and Yahweh was enraged with me for your sake, because had Yahweh given in, that would have undermined the whole thing. Yahweh doesn't change. His right rulings are forever. And that's an example of it with Moshe. And that's the same example why, we play the game that I often tell you that I play with people to kind of show them what this is all about. I say, look, does Yahweh change? And they always say, no, except the one guy who was a pastor on an airplane coming from South Africa. And then I said, game over, let's talk about something else. Because when they placed I didn't know what to say to him, and this is a pastor. He said, yes. And I was like, I never expected that answer. I didn't know what to do with that. But everybody generally will say, no. Because you'll say, does God change? We'll make it simple. Does God change? No, God doesn't change. Good. So if he says something is right, can it ever be wrong? And if he says something, no. So if he says something's wrong, can it ever be right? No. Okay. So then we can't have him saying that pork is okay to eat. You can't have him saying that putting pagan religious belief systems like Christmas into the system is okay. You can't have him changing his way of doing things. See, but Christianity is built on the bad, mean ogre of the Father in the Old Testament has been overridden by our wonderful Savior, his Son, who's now going to lead and basically usurp his Father on everything. Is that not basically the premise of Christianity? But in that scenario, Yahweh's changing. See, now, if you listen to the Father and the Son teaching, you know that Yeshua is the same Yahweh of the Old Testament. The Father hasn't been here. And so we're dealing with just the Son all the way through. And so when we are told also that Yeshua, Messiah, is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that's the same as telling us Yahweh doesn't change. I am Yahweh, I change not. We see that in the prophets. And so basically, that's where we run into the challenge. And so we have to remember that in all these things that we do. He doesn't change. And what is he expecting from us? To change into him and then not change. Right now, we're very, very changeable human beings. And that's good, because we need to change. But once we become like him, every piece that's like him that we take in, that needs to stay and not change. Okay, did I answer your question? I don't know I just went off in a direction. Okay, good. Okay, who's next?
Anders?
Rabbi?
Yes. You started in verse 9 in chapter 4. It says, only guard yourself and guard your life diligently, lest you forget the words your eyes have seen, and lest they turn aside from your heart all the days of your life. And you mentioned about, you thought that see means that they've seen the blessings, they've seen what happens, the curses. And it just jumped me immediately to chapter 30 and verse 1.
Okay.
Where there it says, and it shall be when all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you should bring them back to your heart. So he's talking about the exact same thing. And you kept reading in chapter 4, and he's talking also about the same thing as in chapter 30. And I was just blown away how at the end of the chapter 4, you jumped to chapter 31 and concluded everything. And I'm not sure if that was in your notes or if it just a verse that came to you, but I was amazed that you actually went there. Yeah.
When I jumped to where?
You jumped to chapter 30 and verse
19.
19. Yeah.
That's not in my notes, no.
Yeah, and I'm just amazed. No. It's just a witness for me to see that in action.
Okay, good. You know, I don't have Deuteronomy 30 in my notes, and so that was just a jump, because I saw the same thing you saw. I saw the connection to that and wanted to jump there, or the Ruach stimulated or whatever. So, but thank you for confirming that was something you were seeing as well. Appreciate that. All right, who's next? Oh, Nate again, go ahead.
This is for Rabbi in reference to Deuteronomy 8:2. He desired to humble us and test us in order to give us an opportunity to experience intimately knowing him and vice versa. A bridegroom humbles his wife during their honeymoon. He was simply saying that they needed more direct personal time with him. I guess that's a statement.
Is that a quote from me?
That was just a statement for you.
Oh, for me, okay. Very nice, I appreciate that. I mean, I can't remember. Now, when you were quoting Deuteronomy 8:2, I was going to look it up to make sure what it said. I wasn't really familiar with where you were going. Now, I appreciate that. And by the way, I do appreciate what Nate said about a ministry that wasn't charging for things. Look, there are some ministries right now streaming Shemini Atzeret and Sukkot for a donation value. And the reason they're doing it is because they plan to sell all the teachings from Sukkot, and therefore they don't want to undermine their sales by making it available free. Then why would they need to sell it to you later? This whole turning this into business has got to stop. You know, there was a gentleman that was part of the ministry for a little while with us, and he was in his 60s, and, you know, he had a very interesting perspective on things. He'd been doing it a long time. And there were some very good things coming out of his mouth that I really appreciated. And one of the things he said was this: if I need it, you should give it to me for free. If I want it, you can sell it to me. I thought that was beautiful. It's almost like the websites where they only give you sort of the light and fluffy, whatever, basic teachings for free, but you have to join to get the good stuff. We've always put everything out there free, because I don't, in my, whatever, pride, ego, humility, whatever you want to attribute to me, I think you need it. And if you need it, I'm making it, that's why we mail out 3,600 CDs every month, or something like that. Manny's like, yeah, I remember making them all. Okay? We mail out a lot of CDs. And that's thousands of dollars worth of stuff we mail out. Why? Because you need it. And some of those people will make an offering. We don't solicit, by the way, saying, you know, by the way, we sent these to you, please consider making a donation. We simply say, here. Now, we do send out a letter saying, if you do want to do anything, this is how you can do it. And some people don't know how to do it, especially because they're going to other countries. But we are not soliciting. We say, look, we are not asking you for anything. This is free. And that's important to me. That goes back to like earlier in the service when we talked about some of the things that have been going on. The integrity issues are very important to me, that we are absolutely giving people everything we can. As long as we have the money to do it, we're giving it away. And this is because that's what he does. I mean, that's not because we want to impress everybody with how generous we are. I don't want you to have any reason to say you couldn't get it. That's my driving force. I don't want anybody to say, well, I couldn't afford it or I couldn't access it. We put it in every possible platform we can so that you can possibly get it. All right, Amen. Where's the mic? Okay, David?
Thank you, Rabbi. Just a quick comment on the Afterburn to begin with, because I know a lot of us take it for granted now because we've been doing it for so long. But honestly, praise Yah, and thank you so much for organizing it, because I know that was an answered prayer, especially for my wife as our peace was being disturbed and leading into it, that you couldn't ask a question. And when we did ask a question, well, there wouldn't really be any sufficient answers. So I just want to thank you, because the Afterburn is honestly some of the best stuff, and it really is an answered prayer. The first time we live streamed, we heard that shofar, they're like, oh yeah, and we're going to do a Q&A, and we looked at each other like, all right, this is cool. So really thank you for that, and praise Abba, because this is how the way it should be done, exactly what Nate was talking about, giving it away, being that flow through, and then really hosting Messiah in our midst together.
Amen. Let me interrupt for a second just to say this. We always took questions after every teaching, all the way back for the last 18, 19 years, whatever it's been that we've been doing this. And so that was important to me, because I wanted to know that you actually understood what I said. Because back then, nobody understood what I was teaching. In other words, it was all new to everybody. See, some of you are new, but you're in a room for other people that are not so new. So they have different levels of knowing and understanding the stuff that I teach. But because I knew so much of what I was teaching was so different, I had no idea how it was being received, because a lot of people were looking at me like this. You know, I always want to have that cricket thing on my phone, play that for you, okay? And so that's why I started right from the beginning. I don't even remember what started. I just started to ask, well, was that okay? Did anybody understand that? Then what you really want to praise is, and I want to praise too, is when we hired Marty. Because Marty was sitting there during these Q&As. He was sitting there during the Q&As and decided to turn the camera on to make sure we didn't lose all that stuff. And then he said to me, Rabbi, what would you think if we could kind of take that, and he came up with the title Afterburn, and if we could post them? So the fact that they actually are not just left gone after it happened, that they're actually recorded, archived, and available, we thank him for that idea. It was a beautiful idea. Thank you, Marty. Because we've done this for years, and all that stuff is gone. It was just, but it was for the people who heard it who were just in the room. And now we record it. And we don't do it any different than we did before. It's just the camera's on. And so it's almost like the teaching continuing in some ways, because questions are being asked. So that was how Abba brings a team together, okay? Where they can see, hey, what if we did this? That would just make it more effective. And so that's really fabulous. Okay, who's next? Oh, David, I didn't get to ask your comment or question. Okay, go ahead.
I got to get it in before we go back to Alberta, so it's a long trip. So in verse 39, and you shall know today and shall recall to your heart that Yahweh himself is Elohim in the heavens above and on the earth beneath, there is none else. I know this is something that you grew up with too, Rabbi, the Aleinu prayer. It's a very traditional Jewish prayer, and that translated roughly is, it is upon us, it is our obligation to praise Yahweh, which I think fits perfectly also into Zechariah 14:9, which is also the ending of the Aleinu prayer, which says, and Yahweh shall be sovereign over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Yahweh and his name one. So kind of prefacing with the obligation, recalling to our heart to get to that place, that obligation is what we're expected. That is the covenant. And so it's that bookends of that beautiful prayer of what we need to do to get to that place together.
I'm sorry, that's the end of the prayer. Okay? The V'ne'emar, and we did that actually during Trumpets and Atonement, so you got to hear that a little bit. And hope you guys didn't mind two Jews having a little conversation about this. Okay? Because we can relate to things in a different way and then share it with you so you can too. And that's one of the beautiful things, and you can bring somebody from that side of the river to give you a whole different perspective. Because we know the prayers these things birthed. Because the prayers came out of this. I don't want to say this came out of the prayers. We know where those prayers are coming from. When we read that and go, oh. And some of you are starting to recognize as we read the Torah portions, you go, oh, that's the Matovu. Oh, that's the Vishamru in Exodus 31. Oh, that's the Michamocha. These aren't man-made prayers. They're prayers coming from the verses. And so here he's identifying pieces of the Aleinu. And the Aleinu is really the heart centerpiece of most of the services that the Jews do. Okay, who's next? Okay, Josh?
I always find it really interesting whenever I find things that connect directly with my line of work. In the 23 years that I've worked in food service, including time at the White House, I've done some very interesting things, including work with ice sculptures and fruit carvings and things of that nature. And going into Deuteronomy 14, verses 16 through 18, about the likenesses and stuff, I've done some pretty interesting and strange carvings, and I wonder if that translates to that, to where like I would want to restrain from doing that type of work if, somebody had a request for something of that nature.
Okay, so he's talking about Deuteronomy 4, not 14, but it's verses 16 to 18. We're talking 14 to 18. We're talking about the carved images and everything. Deuteronomy 4, right?
Yes,
okay.
that's correct. Sorry.
So, look, I would be using discernment. Look, if you're doing it for a normal banquet, wedding, some other thing that's not oriented into some sort of religious thing, and you're simply making pretty ice sculptures and watermelon sculpture, whatever, of like a swan or this or a heart or whatever it is, I wouldn't worry about that too much. If they're starting to ask you to make something that looks like Dagon or Molech, you're gonna might have a problem. And if they start going over and chanting and worshiping it, I would run. And as you're doing, say, by the way, I'm giving my notice. Okay? So, but that's probably not going to happen. Okay, basically, those kind of sculptures are just done to show that it's a higher level of formality and an extra special type of event. Because you're getting this extra touch of creativity and art being brought in that obviously takes a lot more caring and effort than your normal just serving of food. Okay? So I don't think that generally should be a problem. All right? Now, if you really want the good stuff, you need to go on the cruise. You knew I was going there, didn't you? My wife was laughing and pointing at me. Actually, we were disappointed because they weren't doing it anymore the last time we went. They had the midnight, you ready for this? The midnight chocolate buffet. Ooh, all the ladies went, ooh. The guys were like, eh. Okay, but the ladies were like, ooh. And let me tell you something. When you got in line to go into it, it was 90% ladies. Most of the guys were in the casino. But the ladies were like, chocolate buffet, I'm coming. And they had chocolate sculptures. They didn't have the ice sculpture. Everything was chocolate. Chocolate, anything could be dipped in chocolate, made of chocolate, chocolate in it, chocolate on it, didn't matter. It was, wow. And that's what you need, by the way, at midnight. You need to be stuffed full of a bunch of chocolate because you're going to stay up till 4 like a smart person and wake up at noon. Just saying. And all of you for my anniversary who gave us chocolate, I've been eating it just around 12, just so you know. Okay. To get that burst. Okay, who's next? I know all of you are expecting chocolate buffets to be a part of this conversation. Okay, let's go. Okay, Janet, go ahead.
Yes, Rabbi. I was on chapter 8, verse 3, when it says, and he humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone. And this is the part that steered me a little bit, that you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh. So I've been thinking about this verse and trying to figure out exactly what that means. Maybe you can help me. What I'm getting is that our Father sustains us, sustains this life, but also by his word, we get to the eternal life, which is the real life. But then at some point in your teaching, you were connecting it with one of the Beatitudes when you said, blessed are the ones who hunger for righteousness, for they will be filled. That's the part that I did not get, so if you can elaborate a little bit more, the linkage between the two, please.
I'm going to refer that to the Rebbitzin and her program, and it's going to be available. No. Okay? Because he's trying to tell you that if you're hungering and thirsting, it's only his word that's going to fill you so that you can be satisfied in full. Because remember, when you had your peace disturbed, I usually use a finger like poking you and kind of irritating you, right? And you started asking, seeking, and knocking. It wasn't until you found Torah that you started to find satisfaction for that hunger and thirst. So it's those who hunger and thirst for righteousness will actually have that filled. Does that answer the question? Okay, good. Excellent. And by the way, when we were talking about, because now that I got it in my brain, the chocolate buffet, they should have had next door the room with the milk and honey, because you need milk to go with the chocolates. I'm just saying, okay. Now, who's next? In the back, okay, Kurt, live stream or Kurt, which either way?
It's live stream.
Okay.
I have Georgia wants to know, how can I tell when the commands/covenants are for the nation Israel? I want to be careful to do the maximum, so should I even try to make that distinction?
No, I mean, look, there's the ones that are not for you, but for the nation, as far as commandments, it's not so much that they're for the nation. There's some of them are the ones that you only can do in the context of a nation. Like, for example, if somebody does whatever would normally get a stoning offense, you cannot stone them now because that requires a nation with judges in the courts and the whole thing. So there's some laws that you just can't perform because you need the whole structure to be in place. Not very many of them necessarily that you're normally thinking about, because most of those laws that are for that, you don't spend a whole lot of time being taught or studying or anything else. Temple service related things, because after all, there's no temple. Things regarding, the portion that's for the Levites, well, only the Levites needed to worry about that. There are things that are for corporate structured setup. Now, the thou shalt and thou shalt nots, generally those things are all for you. Now, we're not talking about promises, etc. We're talking about when he says that you have to have equal weights and equal measures and all the 10 commandments and all the other laws that you find all throughout Exodus and Deuteronomy and Leviticus, etc., which is where most of the laws are. They're probably mostly for you. Now, if you're not sure, here's the really beautiful thing. There's a structure, if you are choosing to be in it, that will answer those questions. And so if you're not sure, you can contact the headship that you can choose to be under and say, I'm not sure if this is something that applies to me. And so you can ask. Okay, next question.
All right, here's the second one. Thomas Losardo, does Deuteronomy 4:19 refer to astrology as compared to just admiring Yahweh's night sky display?
4:19. Lest you lift up, it's really talking about the worship of the sun, the stars, and the moon. I mean, it could be talking about things like astrology, but it's really specifically talking about sun worship, moon worship, and that kind of thing. But when it talks about the stars, that could be certainly adding the astrology in there as well. But it's talking about it from a worship point of view. I mean, I look up at the stars, and I'm very, very much awestruck about what Yahweh has done. I don't then bow down to them, but I might bow down to him, because he's the one that placed them there. Okay, next question. Okay, you're good. Where's the mic? Okay, over here, Manny.
I just want to bring it back a little bit to the whole CD thing. When I first started working for you, I've always been about customer service, and when I was managing stores, as much as you wanted to help, it was about minimizing costs at all costs. So with you and reading, I guess it was my own test and witness about you. You'd get these letters, and people oftentimes didn't know what they wanted. So not knowing what they wanted, they would write to you, and you would give me the letter, and you'd say, they'd mention a couple of the teachings, and I would ask you, you want me to just give them those couple? And you're like, no, just send them the whole thing. And I was like, what do you mean the whole thing? Like each one of those that they mentioned? No, just pack it all up and send it off. And it was the non-hesitation that you had that taught me, blew me away. It was that heart, nope. And it's not just because it's a ton of CDs to pack up, but it's because it's a ton of CDs to pack up and ship out. And I couldn't believe that you're always without a hesitation about cost or anything. It's always, just go ahead and pack up everything. And then I wouldn't know, does that include the heart of the matter or just, and no, he included every single CD.
I appreciate that a lot. And my wife could tell you that goes all the way back to, it's just always the person will say, well, I need, this teaching or whatever, this part of it. I will send them the whole thing. Well, they really need this other teaching too, so take that, And Yahweh really used this in a way to really bless me in that when we went on our journey, we came out of it at a time where I was like, well, where would I start again? And so I called my good friend Dominic at the time, who's passed away since, and said, do you know any place where I might start? He said, well, let me ask the guy at the congregation that we go to over here in just south of Savannah, Georgia. And the guy said, absolutely no problem. And he said the reason is that many years earlier, around 2000, I was at a conference in Orlando. And at that conference, I had a CD table. That's the one, or a tape table. We had tapes back then. So if you went to the Shofar Clinic, that's the one where I met Dominic in the first place. And his good friend and leader of his little group had come up to my table and was picking out some tapes to get. And I think we were actually selling them for like a nominal $5 or $2, whatever we were trying to do with that. Or we actually had packages, or get 20 of them, whatever. And so he's picked out the ones that he wanted, and I saw what he was doing, and he said, what do you think of this? I said, well, actually, what if you're going to do that? You need this one and this. He says, no, but I only want to buy. I said, that's okay, you need them. And I just kept handing him more stuff. And said, take it. And he remembered that, and because of that, he was very willing to let me have a microphone and relaunch the ministry. So you don't know, that's fruit over like 10 years later. Okay, fruit that didn't happen for 10 years. That was bore fruit for him, but I didn't receive anything back from it for 10 years. I wasn't thinking one day this guy's probably going to help me. I just said, well, I know you only pick those, which is why I don't sell them anymore, because people need whatever they need. Just send it all. If someone's on the phone with me saying, well, here, I'll send you these other ones. You need those too. And so when he says that, we have people, by the way, that do say they like all of them. How many times do we send those out? I mean, we send a lot of them out. And all means 300 and something CDs. I mean, or whatever it is. And so we got big boxes we put them in. It's a lot of CDs, and it weighs a lot, and we ship them out, and that's how it goes. And these are people we might not know or know very well or anything else. They just ask, and we send them. If they're just trying to waste our money and resources, Yahweh will take care of that. I don't mean take care of them, just take care of us. Make sure that we don't get, hindered by the fact that somebody's just trying to mess with our resources. And so I appreciate that, man, because, when he came to start, he was like, I don't know how this guy really operates. But in most operations, they're trying to cut costs, like you said, and cut corners and make sure. And I just say, send it. Just send it. What? It blew you away. I appreciate that. See, and I forget because that's always the way I've been, so I don't realize or think that anybody's going to be blown away by that. I mean, it's just always been. And Julie will tell you this, if you ask my wife, whenever our financial situation is sort of stagnated or gotten challenging, I always say to her, we're not giving enough away. Find more ways to give stuff away. That has always been what we did. We used to actually have on the table not only the tapes, but also soft-covered scriptures, hard-covered scriptures, come out of my people, fossilized. We used to have all of that stuff on the table on Shabbat. People were like, oh, it's Shabbat. I said, it's all free. Well, how much is your suggested donation? There is no suggested donation. Well, how much are they? Don't ask me today. It's Shabbat. You want one? Take it. You want to put something in the box? Put something in the box. That's an offering. But how much do they normally go for? Take it and put something in the box. I'm not playing that game. She'll tell you that's the way those conversations went. Because you've all been in those places with suggested offering. That's selling. Don't kid yourself. Don't be a hypocrite. You're selling. And people tried to kind of twist me into it because people, at that time, we didn't have websites with our price list and everything. They came in and go, well, how much is it anyway? What's it cost you? Not today. You want it, take it. You want to put something in the box, put something in the box. And we lost money, actually, most weeks. Albert still took care of us, though. It was a small congregation between the tapes and the books and everything else and the small amount that went in the box. Uncle Bob knows this to be true. He was with us back then. Remember the table with all that stuff on it? We gave away more Bibles than we sold. Every year, I'm sure we gave away more than we sold. And that's not bragging. It's that we're trying to set an example. And that people like Manny saw that, and it moved him to say, you know what, I might be in the right place. This is an example maybe I need to start following in my life. And that's all we can do, right, is set the example. All right, where's the mic? And by the way, for all those of you that are watching, if you do have the ability to download. Don't ask for the CDs. Why would you cost us money if you don't need to? All right? But if you have bandwidth issues, or if you've got technology issues where you really need a CD, then absolutely, please let us know and we'll send it to you. That's what we're here for. I mean, I've got $4.7 million. We can make as much as we want. We don't have that. You guys who are watching now, we're not here for the earlier service. That's a joke. Anyway, on this side, go ahead, Nate.
On that note, I have to repent to you if I haven't already. When we first came here, I looked at my wife and I saw all those CDs on the table. And I went, oh, he's another guy selling stuff. And then I went over and I don't even know who I was talking to. And then I heard they were free. I was like, oh, man, I've never heard of that before. Now I repented to my wife because I did mention it to her. She was the only one I mentioned it to. And the thing that I noticed that is different because I know a lot of Messianic teachers that are really nice guys, but they sell all their stuff. And that turns me away from that because, like I said, if it's from Yahweh, if it's something that we need, why are you selling it? So it's like water. Why would somebody who needs water, why would you sell it to them if they really need that water? You want to see that they're nourished. And I noticed that what they are selling is informational. It's good information. It might be interesting. It might pique my interest. But what you're selling is not really selling. You're giving away a way for us to learn how to be transformed from who we are now into what he is, and it's relational.
Amen.
And you believe in what you believe in.
Amen.
And that's, it's just the heart of the matter.
Amen. I mean, look, that's always been the model that he's told us. Same reason why we don't take up an offering. The box just is in the back. That's all we do. I mean, I've told this story. I mean, one year when we first came back into ministry, somebody kept from a background where the ministries they've been a part of always took up an offering on the first holy day and on the last holy day. And so I'd never done that. And for whatever reason, I said, okay, we'll do it. Because he was like really persistent, like, well, you need to do one. I mean, we're coming, we're expecting an offering. Okay. So it's the first holy day. We're almost done with services, just like we are right now. And he's kind of raised his hand going, aren't you going to do the offering? And I'm like, oh, I totally forgot because we've never done one before. And we didn't have anything to put it in. So we were at a place where we were cooking for ourselves. So we went and got a bunch of big mixing bowls and salad bowls, and we didn't know what to do. And we passed them around and everything else. And when I went back to the room where I got to see what ended up in the offering box, we had probably 125 people at that feast, almost 200. I mean, it was a pretty good size Sukkot. We had 120 something, whatever. And there was probably not even $100 in there, maybe 200. Which is not a very big offering on a holy day at a feast. And so I looked up at the sky saying, okay, I get it. We're never doing that again. I never was supposed to, never did. Somehow got, again, influenced to say, okay, give something a shot just because this guy wanted it. And I said, well, I like to please people, and let's just go ahead. And so the next day, I said to everybody, this box, as it always has been, is over on this table, and all week long, if you're ever moved, that's where it is. No more offerings. Took the box home, not home, but back to the room later that day, and it was not only filled with some money, but there was a stack of 20s in a bank tape that wouldn't have fit through the slot in the box. And I promise you, and Uncle Bob could tell you, we didn't have anybody with that kind of money. Not that any of us knew of. And we're talking enough 20s to not fit through. And you see that, well, this is a different box. Our old box, it had a pretty good sized slot. But it was not just the slot. If they'd gotten it in, it would never have slid. That thick an amount would have just been standing up in the slot. And so we know how it got there. And then I looked at the sky again and said, you don't have to scream. I get it. Not complaining. Lesson learned. We don't do that. We just give stuff away, let people know it's available, and we do not do that other stuff. And listen, I make mistakes sometimes, but I'm not slow. Okay? He got my attention real quick, and that's all we do. But that's how he does things just to get your attention. almost nothing in the box. So the first time you did the wrong thing, here's an abundant blessing. It's like we do with kids, right? You do a good job, here's a cookie, here's this, here's that. You mess up, we take things away, it's not what you expected. That happens in your life all the time. Are you paying attention? Are you learning lessons? It is now almost 6 o'clock when we have time for dinner, so we need to wrap this up. Is there anybody else with an urgent anything that needs to be covered? No. Okay, I hope this was a blessing. We're at the end of our whole feast. I don't want to applaud. I want to stay. But with one condition, that all of you stay. If you all leave, by the way, we've had people, because of their travels, when we used to be on other properties where you can camp and RV and stuff, they've stayed like a day after because of the way it worked out and then traveled. They said it was the most depressing thing to be in the camp when it was empty. I mean, it's bad enough when you have to go home, but at least you're going home. It's your home and you got your whole life there. But to stay in the camp when the camp is empty, they said it was so depressing. I can imagine. Okay, so we're going to close up. I'll go ahead and close in prayer. And what I would like to do is have everybody here. Don't run out right after. There's like one or two real quick things I want to say to everybody, but we'll do it after the cameras go off. And so just stay and stick around. So if you all rise, and we'll close in prayer. And then after the prayer, we'll just wave Chag Sameach to everyone and wish them a great week. Our Father, our King, Avinu Malkeinu, Father, we come before you at the end of this event. And I am very honored and humbled to be able to have had an opportunity to serve these people in whatever capacity I could. And all of the team here feels the same way. What a blessing it is to be serving you. And Father, we ask that you would continue to bless all that are here in hearing the word and then taking it and implementing it in their lives, that it will become a part of them as they go from who they are into what you are in that transformation. Father, we ask now as we dismiss that you would keep us safe, that would help us in our travels. Lots of us are traveling several miles, several hours, even overseas, even long distances by plane. And so, Father, there's lots of opportunities for challenges there, and we ask your intervention, protection, and oversight in all of us to get us home to our homes safely. Father, we really appreciate so much in your forethought of knowing we would need times like this to have a refreshing, not just on a one day like a Shabbat, but for a whole week plus, when we can enjoy each other, enjoy you, build the relationships in our rehearsing and practicing of what it looks like, feels like to be in a community that lives forever. So, Father, thank you. Thank you, and we appreciate so much your feast. How we ever thought those other things we did were any good compared to this makes no sense. Why would we want those things when you have such wonderful, blessed times for us to celebrate with each other and with you? So, Father, we praise you. We thank you, giving you all glory and all honor in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen. 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 Okay, so how do you want to do this? Should I come up here? Okay, same way? Okay. And you're going to bring the camera over this way so you can... Julie, you want to come over? We're going to do the wave goodbye. Yeah, I'm going to talk to everybody after. Don't leave after we turn the cameras off and everything. I want to talk to you just for a quick minute. And so, Marty, when you tell us you're ready, we can all do the... So we're all going to say Chag Sameach and then Shavua Tov. Have a good week. Okay, ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. Chag Sameach! Shavua Tov! We love you!